One day, a woman with striking blue hair awakens to a new reality. She finds herself in a grand, unfamiliar hall filled with people. Disoriented, she questions her sudden and strange predicament. The overwhelming noise of the crowd only deepens her confusion. A stern-looking judge slams his gavel, demanding order in the court. With a grim expression, he prepares to announce a momentous verdict. A jolt of pain hits her as she realizes this is her own trial. The grave charges are read aloud. She's accused of ending countless lives. A splitting headache makes it impossible for her to process the horrific words. While the judge considers her youth, she notices her own body is bound by thick ropes. The final damning verdict is announced: life imprisonment. The sentence hits her and she stares back in utter disbelief. She reflects on how this all started, waking up one day to find herself a prisoner. As she's carted away in a prison wagon, onlookers whisper about her sanity. Now blindfolded, she overhears the guards speculating that only possession could explain her supposed crimes. They reveal her destination is no ordinary prison, but a place reserved for the truly unhinged. With that, her new identity was forged in the eyes of the world. She was branded as the youngest serial killer in the history of the nation. But the ultimate injustice, hidden behind the fabricated evidence, is that the crimes never even occurred. The truth is simple and devastating. She was framed for everything. She realizes her entire situation perfectly mirrors the plot of her favorite dark novel. The story was The Saintess and the Three Sinners, an intense tale she happened to adore. Bound and gagged, she sarcastically wonders if her taste in fiction is a crime punishable by death. She laments being reincarnated not as a hero, but as a falsely accused side character living in hell. The prison wagon jolts to a halt and the guards roughly command her to get out. Pushed into the freezing air, she's told this is where she'll spend the rest of her life. An ominous, ornate sign officially reveals her destination, Niflheim Prison. She looks up to see a massive, imposing fortress built upon a treacherous cliff. The stone towers of Niflheim loom against the dark, snowy sky, promising a cold future. Aptly nicknamed Frozen Hell, the prison sits on an isolated island at the very edge of the world. Though technically part of the continent, this land is a forgotten, abandoned wasteland. She's thrown into a solitary cell, ordered to spend her first night reflecting on her supposed sins. The heavy iron door slams shut, sealing her fate with a cruel reminder that repentance is useless. She scoffs at the injustice, knowing these crimes belong to neither her nor the body's original owner. Overwhelmed by her hopeless situation, she lets out a deep, defeated sigh. The judge's damning words, life imprisonment, echo once more in her mind. Niflheim is notorious as one of the world's most inescapable prisons. But she refuses to accept this fate, her resolve hardening as she vows to find a way out. A glimmer of hope appears as she recalls that this very prison is where the novel's male lead makes his grand entrance. Armed with the knowledge of a hardcore fan, she realizes she knows the entire plot, her key to survival. Her initial spark of hope is instantly crushed by a devastating realization. She stares at her own hands, realizing the fatal flaw in her plan. She's far too young. The character she's become was an adult in the novel, meaning she has arrived a full decade before the story even begins. Her escape hinges on the male lead, but he isn't scheduled to appear for another 10 years. The horrifying truth sinks in. She must somehow survive in this hellhole for a decade, trapped in a child's body. Faced with this impossible task, she can only cover her face and let out a burst of crazed, desperate laughter. Her silent, furious outburst only confirms the guard's suspicions that she's possessed. One guard callously remarks that it doesn't matter, as she won't last long here anyway. But hearing their dismissal, a fierce determination ignites within her, her eyes glowing with defiance. She makes a silent, unbreakable vow to survive this ordeal, no matter the cost. She kneels, her head bowed but her spirit unbroken, solidifying her promise to herself. Lifting her gaze, her eyes burn with a newfound resolve to endure this hellish place. Her first goal is simple yet monumental. She will make it out of here alive. With that, she silently screams her ultimate vow to escape this godforsaken prison. A decade passes, and a new prisoner, Hyla Carmen, arrives at Niflheim, convicted of fraud. A stern guard begins to lay down the law, giving her a one-time explanation of the rules. He outlines the prison's structure, with segregated wings and a common yard for female inmates. The guard then gestures toward the most imposing structure, the mysterious central tower. Hyla puzzles over the tower's purpose, questioning its unusual presence within the prison walls. As they enter the yard, they spot a lone figure with familiar blue hair, diligently sweeping the grounds. Hyla is immediately captivated by the sweeper's stunning appearance, wondering who this mysterious woman could be. The blue-haired inmate pauses her work, her calm, crimson eyes meeting the newcomer's stare. Suddenly, another prisoner shoves Hyla to the ground, causing her to cry out in terror. The guard coldly explains the prison's brutal rank system, where newcomers are treated as the absolute lowest. Witnessing the harsh reality, a desperate Hyla asks how she can possibly improve her standing. He reveals that the central tower hosts weekly matches, the only way to climb the ruthless hierarchy. Hyla looks at the imposing fortress, disturbed by the violent system that governs her new life. The blue-haired woman then approaches, breaking the tension by asking if Hyla is a new arrival. Recognizing the calm voice, Hyla timidly confirms her status as a recent inmate. With a deadpan expression, the woman simply points out that Hyla has just dirtied the spot she finished cleaning. Hyla scrambles to apologize, explaining that the guard brought her over and she didn't mean to dirty the floor. With a chilling smile, the blue-haired woman suggests the guard should be punished instead, leaving Hyla utterly confused. Before Hyla can process this, two male inmates suddenly grab her and bind her hands. The blue-haired woman's crimson eyes narrow as the men turn their attention to her, remarking on her appearance. The two thugs grin menacingly, surprised to find someone they consider attractive in such a harsh prison. Hyla looks to the guard for help, only to find him looking away, completely indifferent to the escalating situation. One of the men brazenly reaches out, his hand moving toward the blue-haired woman's face. He gets uncomfortably close, propositioning her while she remains utterly unfazed by his advances. Her expression is a mask of icy composure, her glowing eyes hinting at a danger lurking just beneath the surface. The confrontation draws the attention of everyone in the yard, but no one, not even the guards, dares to step in. A terrified Hyla asks if someone should intervene, but her question is met with chilling indifference. Before she can finish her sentence, a brilliant flash of light erupts from beside her. She watches in shock as a powerful aura of pure energy explodes across the prison yard. The source is the blue-haired woman, who mockingly feigns fear while unleashing her power through her broom. The two thugs are completely stunned, recoiling in shock from the unexpected display of force. With a confident smirk, she coolly declares that what's about to happen is merely self-defense. She closes her eyes, channeling an overwhelming amount of energy into her seemingly ordinary broom. Hyla is left speechless, witnessing a level of power she never thought possible. A divine symbol materializes in the air as the blue-haired woman invokes a higher power. She then offers a sarcastic prayer, asking for salvation for her broom, which is about to deliver a harsh lesson. The broom radiates a brilliant holy light, leaving the two thugs gaping in disbelief. One of the men stares at the glowing tassel, his mind reeling as he questions her true identity. With a single, elegant swing, she sends one of the aggressors flying with the force of her enchanted broom. His face contorts in a silent scream of agony, completely overwhelmed by the unexpected power. The two men are swiftly and soundly defeated, their pleas for mercy utterly ignored. She calmly presents the aftermath, cheekily informing an unseen judge that her broom was solely responsible. The second thug, recovering, mistakenly concludes she's only a threat at a distance and plots a close-quarters attack. He channels his own energy, preparing to rush in and exploit what he perceives as a fatal weakness. With a burst of speed, he lunges forward, his hand outstretched to restrain her in an instant. But she effortlessly intercepts his attack, her confident smirk revealing he's made a grave miscalculation. She calls upon her power again, sending the second aggressor flying with a devastating swing of her broom. The commotion finally draws the attention of a high-ranking official who can only stare in utter disbelief. He erupts in fury, shouting her name and demanding to know why she's causing trouble during her punishment. The blue-haired woman, Mint, seems completely unbothered by his tirade, her expression one of pure indifference. Her full name is revealed, Mint Minterimneds, as she strikes a pose, clearly unimpressed by the interruption. It turns out she's not just any inmate. She's the tower's only top-level prisoner and the leader of a faction called the Wild. She sits casually atop her defeated opponents, pondering that perhaps her plan to survive worked a little too well. In the decade she's been here, she didn't just endure, she became the undisputed boss of the entire prison. The narrative then shifts to explain the source of her incredible power, an energy known as Qi. This fundamental force is a common ability, wielded by about half the population of this world. This versatile energy, with its varying forms and scales, holds infinite possibilities. Some wielders use it to gain incredible strength, while others control nature or manipulate minds. The type and scale of this power ultimately depend entirely on the individual user. And as fate would have it, Mint possessed an immense, untapped talent for this very power. The moment she awakened her chi, she effortlessly overwhelmed everyone and rose to the top. Back in the present, the warden continues his tirade, his voice echoing from the tower. He stomps on a defeated inmate's hand, furious that she's once again targeted the rookies. Mint remains completely unbothered, simply stating her actions were in self-defense. The warden, Ralph Gaiman, is left utterly confused when she claims the thugs touched her, Amy and Angel. She then holds up 2 strands of her hair, introducing them as the very individuals who were accosted. She playfully insists her hair was hurt, which only makes the warden even more furious at her absurd logic. Back in his office, the warden demands to know why she let things get so out of hand, questioning her faction's discipline. Mint cheerfully promises to try and settle things, while casually admitting she's not sure if the thugs are still breathing. The warden's desperate demand for control is met with her silent, dismissive amusement. Her thoughts drift to the grim reality of the prison, where reason is a forgotten luxury and sanity eventually shatters. She reflects on her brutal transformation, admitting she cast aside all decency just to survive this hell. The only thing anchoring her to her former self are the faint, fading memories of her past life. After 10 years of this, she feels she's only mimicking humanity, a hollow shell of who she once was. With a weary smile, she finally admits to herself that she's reaching her absolute limit. Just as she feels her resolve cracking, an unexpected visitor steps into the warden's office. With a confident smirk, Mint cuts to the chase, demanding to know the real reason he summoned her. The warden simply chuckles, commenting on her consistently rude demeanor. He then stuns her with an unexpected question, asking if she wants to get out of the prison. Her usual composure cracks for a moment as she processes the unbelievable offer. She internally scoffs at the idea, dismissing it as a cruel form of false hope for a lifer. The warden lays out his deal. He needs her for a job, and in return, he will fake her death. He makes it clear that this is her one and only chance to break free from Niflheim for good. The narrative reflects that some opportunities appear as suddenly and deceptively as a lie. A flicker of a smirk appears on her face as she considers the impossible proposition. She realizes this unbelievable offer is precisely one of those once-in-a-lifetime chances. She cuts straight to the point, asking what he needs her to do. The warden reveals her mission. A VIP prisoner is arriving and she must ensure his survival. He then adds a crucial detail. She must not only protect him but make him the new boss of Niflheim. Mint hesitates, knowing the prison is a lawless hell where such promises are nearly impossible to keep. But she quickly realizes this impossible task is her only path to freedom. With a confident smirk, she accepts the dangerous mission without a second thought. She adds her own condition, demanding they seal the deal with an unbreakable chi-bound oath. The warden agrees, shaking her hand and promising her release upon the mission's success. He confirms that her old identity will be erased, offering her a completely fresh start. With a sly grin, she mockingly calls him Master, sealing their dangerous new partnership. Mint internally congratulates herself on her cool and composed exit from the warden's office. The scene shifts, revealing her new disguise as a man, a detail she finds utterly ridiculous. The story then flashes back to a few days earlier, setting the scene for her departure. Back in the prison, Mint wearily packs a small box, preparing to leave her old life behind. She calmly informs her subordinates that she is officially stepping down from her position as leader. Her 2 top lieutenants are left completely speechless by the sudden announcement. A poison specialist named Ramona morbidly speculates that Mint is finally being executed. The other subordinate, Daryl, angrily scolds Ramona, blaming Mint's defiant attitude for her downfall. As Daryl panics about her boss's fate, Mint simply confirms that things have been decided. Ramona finds the entire situation darkly hilarious, teasing Mint while Daryl continues to spiral. Mint turns to Hyla, calmly stating that her arrival is rather unfortunate. She reveals she normally protects newcomers for a week, as the prison is incredibly dangerous. With a wry smile, she gestures to her bickering lieutenants, sarcastically calling them reliable replacements. She offers a final, confident smile, asking them to say goodbye to the others on her behalf. With her farewells complete, she ignores Daryl's frantic protests and walks away, her departure now official. Looking out a grand window, she steels her resolve, ready to begin the mission that will grant her freedom. Her expression is one of grim determination, her mind now fully focused on the task ahead. The scene returns to the present, revealing her new identity as a man, a disguise she finds deeply questionable. She internally laments her miscalculation, having assumed the VIP prisoner would be a woman. A flashback reveals the warden's shocking order. Her mission requires her to transfer to the men's prison. Mint stares in disbelief, questioning the warden's absurd command to go to the men's prison. She points out the obvious flaw in his plan, but he simply states she'll have to conceal her identity. Without another word, she takes matters into her own hands, swiftly cutting her long hair short. She then makes a wildly inappropriate suggestion, which sends the warden into a fit of rage. As he fumes about her cutting her hair, she coolly retorts that he should have specified what disguise meant. The warden slumps in his chair, utterly exhausted by her unpredictable and baffling logic. He reveals he has a special artifact to complete her disguise, ordering her to prepare for her departure. Returning to the present, she examines her new male appearance in the mirror, finding the sight deeply unsettling. Despite her discomfort, she has to admit the magical artifact has done an impressively thorough job. The disguise is flawless, having altered not just her hair, but even changing her crimson eyes to a vibrant green. She examines her hand, noticing that while her build is similar, the bone structure is now distinctly male. Her new persona is deliberately unremarkable: average build, brown hair, and a gentle presence, the exact opposite of her true self. She considers her new ordinary face, realizing it's the perfect camouflage for moving around unnoticed. As she dons her new uniform, she reflects on the one silver lining in this absurd situation. The crucial detail is that she's not returning as an inmate, but infiltrating the prison as a guard. This new role grants her more freedom of movement and means she won't be locked in a cell with her target. She officially assumes her new identity as Garrett, a rookie guard assigned to the men's prison. Her preparation involved 10 grueling days of memorizing the ridiculously thick official guard manual. She notes that 10 days have passed since her old identity, Mint, officially vanished from the prison. This is significant because Niflheim's rules dictate a new leader is chosen after 7 days, meaning her faction is already under new command. She briefly wonders who took her place as leader, but quickly decides it's no longer her problem. A fellow guard addresses her by her new name, Garrett, leading her further into the men's prison. She reflects that her old self has been completely erased, with a new name, face, and gender. Another guard informs her that her supervising sergeant is running late, a small detail she politely acknowledges. Her focus remains fixed on the ultimate prize, a brand new life once this mission is complete. She confirms to herself that her target, the VIP prisoner, has just arrived today. She reflects on the 10 long years she has already spent, trapped within this frozen hell. It was a period far longer and more grueling than she could have ever imagined. That time was enough to shatter her naive hope of simply waiting for the novel's hero to rescue her. She remembers the novel only gave the prison break a few sentences, a mere footnote in the male lead's story. She knew her memory of the novel was a fragile hope, as the hero's exact arrival time was a complete mystery. This left her with only one path to freedom: protect the warden's VIP and make him the new king of Niflheim. A fellow guard points her down the hall, directing her to the cell of the newly arrived inmate. With her escape on the line, she walks forward, eager to finally lay eyes on her target. She proceeds down a dimly lit corridor, heading deeper into the prison's depths. Each step brings her closer to the man who holds the key to her future. She finally arrives at the cell, stopping just outside the bars to face her mission. The guard introduces her to the prisoner she'll be in charge of, a man with striking white hair. Her disguised green eyes widen as she gets her first proper look at the VIP. It's him, the male lead from the novel, looking exactly as she remembered from the story. His handsome face is marked by faint scars, a testament to a difficult past. The guard introduces him as prisoner Helios, whose intense purple eyes meet hers. Mint, disguised as Garrett, reels in confusion, her carefully laid plans suddenly thrown into chaos. Helios clenches his jaw, his expression a mix of defiance and weariness. She internally panics, realizing the VIP prisoner is none other than the novel's main character. Her mind races as she recalls the key plot points of the original story. The novel's hero was the powerful and respected heir to a prestigious ducal family. Betrayed by his own father, he was framed for a crime he didn't commit and cast into this very prison. Against all odds, he was destined to become the first and only person to ever escape Niflheim. After his escape, he would meet the female lead and find a very intimate way to relieve his years of trauma. She recalls how the novel's hero is destined to seek grand vengeance. His ultimate targets are the imperial family who betrayed him. Mint realizes the story has already changed, as she never expected the hero to be a VIP prisoner. She weighs her two options, the warden's guaranteed deal versus the unpredictable plot of the novel. The sudden appearance of the male lead feels like a new miraculous path to freedom. But she instantly dismisses the idea, refusing to rely on such a flimsy hope. She can't afford to wait for a prison break she barely remembers the details of. For someone who has spent a decade trapped, a concrete deal is far more valuable than a vague story. She concludes that the warden's offer is the simpler and more reliable path to her escape. With her mind made up, she takes a firm step forward, ready to commit to her mission. She decides her first move as a guard is to befriend the male lead. She contemplates her opening move, trying to come up with the right words. Recalling the guard manual, she decides a compliment is the best way to break the ice with a nervous newcomer. Helios responds with dry sarcasm, remarking that a guard like her must be quite popular. She internally reaffirms her mission, vowing to protect him no matter what. Her attempt at friendliness is met with a furious outburst, and she senses a powerful, untapped chi from him. She coolly counters his insult, leaving her fellow guard flustered by her bizarre response. Her colleague nervously pulls her aside, warning that her choice of words could be misinterpreted. As he explains the social faux pas between men, she has a sudden, jarring realization about her current disguise. Trying to correct her mistake, she offers a new compliment learned from Ramona, which only infuriates Helios further. Her colleague tries to silence her, finding her bizarre behavior completely exhausting. The commotion attracts their supervising officer, Senior Sergeant Stephen, who calls the new guard an oddball. Mint's casual greeting breaks protocol, leading the sergeant to accuse her of mockery. Sergeant Stephen gets aggressive, suggesting her attitude stems from jealousy towards more attractive men. She internally dismisses his hostility, recognizing it as a common attitude in the prison. With a smirk, she sarcastically agrees with his assessment, admitting he's caught her. She launches into a dramatic apology to Helios, blaming her actions on a deep-seated inferiority complex. Continuing the charade, she grabs her own collar and declares it's all Helios's fault for being too handsome. The sergeant is left completely speechless, staring at her with a look of utter disbelief. Even Helios is thrown off, his anger giving way to sheer confusion at the rookie guard's strange antics. Helios internally questions if all the guards in this prison are completely unhinged. The sergeant bursts into laughter, admitting he initially thought she was just another incompetent rookie. Her bizarre performance successfully clears up the misunderstanding, painting her as an overly ambitious rookie. She internally thanks the warden for forcing her to memorize the manual, as it provided the perfect cover story. The sergeant explains that as a rookie, she'll be assigned to one prisoner, then asks if she knows the details of Helios's crime. She calmly admits she hasn't had a chance to review her target's file yet. The sergeant reveals the horrific charge against Helios. He allegedly destroyed an entire village. He remarks that no one sane ever ends up in Niflheim, a sentiment she knows Helios would find deeply unjust. The sergeant notes their shared ambition before announcing their shift is over and it's time to move. She internally resolves to get along with Helios, recognizing they are both victims of false accusations. The sergeant leads Helios to a filthy room, explaining it's his home for the next month unless he proves himself. He reveals the prison's brutal hierarchy, where inmates must fight in the central tower to earn better living conditions. Mint, in her disguise as Garrett, formally introduces herself as his new dedicated guard. Helios smirks, cynically asking if she's going to be his personal shadow. She clarifies her mission is to keep him alive and in one piece for the next month, then moves to unlock his cuffs. While undoing his restraints, she admits that most guards wouldn't bother with such a promise. With a look of fierce resolve, she vows to be the one who will actually protect him. Helios scoffs at the idea, mocking her smaller stature and revealing his notorious nickname, Left Hand Helios. She coolly retorts that size is irrelevant with chi, pointing out that he has yet to awaken his own power. To prove her point, she channels her energy into her fist, unleashing a brilliant flash of raw power. Helios stares in shock, completely stunned by the rookie guard's immense power. Recovering his composure, he challenges her to strike him, eager to test her true strength. He presses the issue, his intense gaze demanding she follow through with the demonstration. Steeling himself for the impact, Helios clenches his fist, ready for whatever comes next. A faint purple aura surrounds him as he prepares to counter, determined not to be underestimated. But instead of a powerful blow, she simply taps his fist with her finger, a shockingly gentle move. Thrown off by the anticlimactic gesture, Helios stumbles over her strategically placed foot. His eyes widen in a flash of realization as he understands he's been effortlessly outplayed. The notorious left-hand Helios is sent tumbling to the ground by the seemingly weak guard. Lying on the floor, he pants in disbelief, utterly bewildered by how he was so easily bested. She looms over him, explaining the vast power gap between a chi user and someone who isn't. Offering a hand, she gives him a crucial piece of fighting advice: always aim for the eyes. She then flashes a disarming smile, adding that she's only helping because she finds him endearing. Helios springs to his feet, grabbing her wrist in fury as she calmly insists it was a compliment. She coolly informs him that his first lesson will be learning to detect poison in his food. The guard reveals the central tower opens tomorrow, offering a weekly chance to climb the ranks through brutal trials. Helios can start immediately, but he's also given a week's grace period as a new arrival. He asks if the tower's highest floors are closer to the outside, a rumor she quickly confirms. But she crushes his hope, calling escape a mere illusion before asking for his decision. Mint knows, however, that the novel's hero is destined to eventually find a way out of this hell. Without hesitation, Helios accepts the challenge, agreeing to participate in the tower's brutal trials. A satisfied smirk crosses her face, pleased that her target is playing right into her hands. She internally resolves to get along with the novel's hero, seeing him as her key to freedom. She silently vows to protect him until her mission is complete and she can finally escape. A few days later, chaos erupts in the prison yard as inmates start a violent brawl. Mint, disguised as Garrett, stands completely unfazed, calmly observing the unfolding conflict. She watches from a distance as Helios, without hesitation, lands a powerful blow on another prisoner. She notes that the novel's hero has a much fiercer temper than she originally anticipated. After taking down his opponent, Helios calls out to her, but she coolly corrects his informal address. He glares back in frustration, questioning if her promise to protect him was just an empty lie. She takes a thoughtful step forward, considering his angry words. She coolly asks if he suffered any serious injuries from the scuffle. She warns him that this is just the beginning, and any sign of weakness will be his end. She then channels a brilliant golden energy, preparing to make a point. Just then, a blast of hostile energy flies straight toward the unsuspecting Helios. She instantly steps in front of him, effortlessly blocking the attack with a golden shield. She calmly explains that this is what a real attempt on his life looks like. Helios is left speechless, his previous anger replaced by sheer astonishment. She internally laments that her power output is weak, as she's forced to conceal her true strength. The surrounding inmates are stunned, wondering who this new guard is and why he just protected a prisoner. She sarcastically asks if he felt the killing intent, mocking his kind demonstration. As Helios gets flustered, she coolly dismisses his outburst, telling him to cry all he wants. Sergeant Stephen approaches, amused by the rookie guard's ambition and rare display of protecting an inmate. With a knowing smirk, the sergeant prepares to move the prisoners along. He then announces it's time for all of them to head into the central tower. Mint, in her disguise, walks alongside Helios as the guards escort the inmates toward their trial. Helios remains tense, unaware of the brutal system he's about to face. The narrative explains that newcomers often question the purpose of the tower's harsh trials. It's revealed the tower serves to break spirits and rank inmates for easier control. The tower's final grim purpose is to control the prison population through 100 floors of deadly trials. Each trial is revealed to be a simple, brutal test of survival against monstrous creatures. The challenges are designed to push inmates to their absolute limits in extreme situations. She recalls the first 20 floors are themed around insects and beasts, a familiar structure despite recent changes. An intrigued Helios breaks the silence, demanding to know how she performed her earlier feat. He clarifies he means the shield, prompting her to feign surprise at his ignorance of chi. She dismisses his curiosity, coldly advising him to worry about staying alive first. Her warning is cut short as she announces they have finally arrived at the tower's entrance. The inmates are led inside while the guards, including her, are ordered to a separate waiting room. She decides to give the clueless hero a hint, but knows she must be careful with so many eyes on them. Leaning in, she gives him a cryptic warning to watch his legs, leaving Helios completely bewildered. Before she can finish, Helios cuts her off, his expression hardening with resolve. He suddenly grabs her hand, his grip firm and unyielding. Leaning in close, he challenges her, demanding to know what he gets if he makes it out alive. Internally, Mint pauses, recognizing the perfect opportunity to motivate her target. She strikes a deal, promising to reveal the secret of her power if he survives the trial. With the bargain set, the colossal doors seal the inmates inside the tower's deadly arena. From the guard's viewing room, she reflects on the strange feeling of watching from above instead of fighting below. Her thoughts are interrupted by another officer, who correctly identifies her as the new rookie. The man introduces himself as Sergeant Kane, and she offers a respectful greeting. The sergeant's formal demeanor shatters as he makes a bizarrely friendly request, leaving her completely bewildered. He casually leans in, insisting the rookie guard address him with a more familiar brotherly title. With a completely deadpan expression, she obliges his strange request. The sergeant erupts in laughter, amused that the new guard was so obedient. His friendly demeanor vanishes as he suddenly decides to teach the rookie a lesson in respect. He throws a powerful kick, but it's stopped mid-air by an invisible force. A jolt of energy courses through him as he realizes his attack was completely neutralized. She stands perfectly still, having instinctively shielded herself with a thin layer of chi. The sergeant is left speechless, recognizing the advanced technique as something only elite knights should possess. Utterly flustered, he drops the issue and orders her to focus on her prisoner, receiving a mockingly cheerful response. She turns away from the defeated sergeant, her attention returning to her target in the arena below. Down in the arena, Helios grips a makeshift weapon, his expression hardening for the fight ahead. He and the other inmates stare in confusion, completely unprepared for what the tower has in store. From the shadows, a swarm of monstrous rats with glowing yellow eyes emerges to greet them. A system message announces the official start of the first-floor trial as Helios steels himself. The rules are simple. The inmates are allowed to choose up to 3 weapons from a nearby rack. A gate creaks open as a voice from above taunts the new arrivals, adding to their growing terror. The horde of monstrous rats pours into the arena, their squeals echoing as they charge the prisoners. Panic erupts as one of the inmates is immediately overwhelmed, his screams lost in the chaos. Another prisoner falls, swarmed by the creatures and begging for a way out of the deadly trial. In the midst of the mayhem, Helios grits his teeth and unleashes a powerful swing, fighting back against the tide. He sends one of the monstrous creatures flying, proving his skill even without chi. The initial group of inmates has been drastically reduced, with only 5 survivors remaining. One of the exhausted prisoners points out a pattern in the monster attacks, a brief respite after each wave. With only minutes to recover, Helios catches his breath, his mind already calculating the next move. He glances up at the observation deck, certain that this seemingly endless trial is being monitored. From her vantage point, Mint watches him closely, her gaze fixed on her target. He remembers her cryptic warning to protect his legs from being torn apart. Realizing it was a crucial hint, he tightens his grip on the spear he chose for its reach. But the specific mention of his legs still leaves him completely baffled. His eyes narrow in concentration, trying to solve the riddle before the next wave begins. Mint silently observes the arena from the viewing deck, her mind calculating. Down below, a frustrated Helios calls out, demanding a response from the silent guard. She smirks, coolly reminding him to address her by her proper title. Helios is left completely baffled by her strange and formal correction. Deciding to help her target, she considers giving him one last crucial hint. She leans forward, preparing to whisper a new, cryptic clue down to the arena. She mouths 2 key words, circle and weapon, hoping he'll understand the riddle. The hero is left even more confused, trying to make sense of the bizarre advice. Just then, the next wave of monstrous creatures swarms toward the remaining prisoners. Helios grips his weapon, his mind racing to solve the puzzle before he's overwhelmed. The cryptic clues suddenly click into place, and a look of realization dawns on his face. His gaze shifts to the walls, where the monstrous horde is now climbing in a terrifying wave. He spots a peculiar glowing circle on one creature's stomach, a detail he'd previously missed. Recalling the guard's strange advice, he finally understands the connection between the circle and his weapon. With a new plan, he shoves past a confused inmate and charges forward with his spear. He charges directly at the wall, targeting the swarm of creatures scaling its surface. With grim determination, he prepares to strike, betting everything on his new theory about the circle. With a powerful thrust, he slams his spear into the wall, precisely hitting the glowing target. His single, calculated strike causes a chain reaction, making the entire climbing horde lose its grip and fall. As the dust settles, he notices a faint magical aura now glowing around the spear in his hand. Helios stares at his spear, which now crackles with an unfamiliar blue energy. The other inmates wonder if he's awakened his chi, but he pushes the thought aside to focus on the immediate threat. With his newly empowered weapon, he effortlessly carves a path through the monstrous swarm. His fellow prisoners can only watch in awe as he single-handedly turns the tide of the battle. The ground is littered with the results of his newfound power, but the fight is far from over. Taking a moment to breathe, he realizes there must be more to this trial than endless slaughter. He then notices a strange phenomenon. His enchanted spear is slowly shrinking with each use. His eyes lock onto the dark archway where the creatures are spawning, identifying his true objective. Rallying the last two survivors, he leads a desperate charge toward the source of the horde. A group of larger rats with glowing red weak points stands guard, ready to defend their nest. He charges forward, spear at the ready, determined to end the trial. A flashback reveals her final cryptic warning about the trial ahead. He stops short, discovering the archway leads to a treacherous, narrow bridge over a dark chasm. He realizes the true layout of the arena was cleverly concealed by the monstrous horde. The only path forward is this flimsy bridge, suspended high above the arena floor. Her final warning echoes in his mind, telling him to be careful not to get torn apart on the bridge. With a powerful swing of his enchanted spear, he clears the path ahead. He discovers the bridge itself is made of the monstrous creatures, now eerily still. Suddenly, the creatures reanimate, and the entire bridge begins to collapse beneath his feet. Just as he clears the trial, a system message appears, and his enchanted spear reverts to its original broken state. A system message mockingly congratulates the few exhausted survivors of the trial. Helios catches his breath, having successfully made it through the first deadly challenge. The survivors are informed they may now proceed to the tower's second floor. The sound of slow, deliberate clapping echoes through the arena, drawing Helios's attention. Mint, in her garret disguise, applauds with exaggerated enthusiasm, a wide grin on her face. She steps forward with the other guards, offering congratulations to the bewildered survivors. The narrative explains the trial's secret, using chi aptitude to activate a weapon and destroy the bridge. She internally praises her own simple but effective motivational tactics. Helios seems unexpectedly moved by the rookie guard's over-the-top display of approval. Another guard has to awkwardly ask her to stop clapping, pulling her out of her performance. A fellow guard instructs her to report to Sergeant Stephen after the prisoner transfer is complete. Meanwhile, Sergeant Kane glares back, still fuming over the rookie's bizarre behavior. He silently vows revenge for the earlier humiliation, plotting to make her mission a failure. She senses the hostile vow just as Helios tries to get her attention. Helios leans in close, his expression intense and demanding. She coolly corrects him, insisting he use her proper title and finally remember her name. Annoyed, Helios grabs her collar, complaining that she's too tall for their conversation. In a flash, she delivers a sharp kick to his shin, forcing him to his knees. As he clutches his leg in pain, she remarks that his new height is much more suitable. She then grabs his head with both hands, pulling him in for an uncomfortably close conversation. She decides to finish her lesson with a final bizarre compliment. Ignoring his protests, she internally notes how surprisingly soft his hair is. Helios furiously slaps her hand away, demanding she stop treating him like a pet. She internally notes that he's already starting to awaken his chi, just as the novel's hero should. But she quickly dismisses the thought as her target has a more pressing concern. Helios reminds her of their deal, demanding she teach him how to create a chi shield. She casually agrees, stepping back and adopting the air of a formal instructor. She declares her intention to be a trustworthy instructor who rewards effort. Helios watches with a growing sense of dread, fearing what her next lesson will entail. Leaning in close, she warns him that insubordination will not be tolerated. Helios's intense gaze shows he understands the gravity of her warning. She leans down, telling him she's counting on his success, a reflection showing her true self in a similar pose. With a smug smile, she adds that during his training, he may refer to her as his master. Helios is left utterly speechless by her bizarre and demanding declaration. He clarifies that he wants to learn how to make a shield, but she coldly dismisses the idea as far beyond his current skill. He erupts in frustration upon learning his first lesson involves a month of memorizing theory. Exhausted, Helios begs her to stop calling him prisoner, but she insists on maintaining the basics. She offers him a list of even more insulting titles, forcing him to reluctantly accept his official designation. He finally asks the most fundamental question of all: what exactly is chi? She explains that chi is the very fuel of their world, a raw energy that can take on countless forms. She continues her lecture on the 5 main uses of chi, much to Helios's growing boredom. A diagram illustrates the 5 categories: physical, elemental, material, mental, and the mysterious uncategorized type. She explains that every chi user is naturally aligned with one of these specific types. With enough talent or effort, she notes, a person might even be able to master 2. The theoretical lesson suddenly ends as she commands him to stand up. Helios remains crouched, completely baffled by her abrupt change in tone and strange request. She reveals this isn't her first time as an instructor, which catches Helios by surprise. Brushing aside his curiosity, she tells him to focus as she prepares for the next phase. She walks toward the center of the room, explaining that experience has taught her a very specific lesson. With a disturbingly cheerful grin, she declares the best training method is a brutal, hands-on approach. Helios stares in utter disbelief, completely unprepared for her sudden shift in demeanor. She instructs him to focus his energy, a command that fills him with a sudden, dawning horror. With a confident grin, she announces her intention to demonstrate all 5 chi types on him. He desperately pleads for an explanation, but his words fall on deaf ears. She casually reassures him she'll only use one hand as she unleashes a brilliant blue energy. Without warning, she lands a powerful blow, sending a shockwave of energy through his body. The first lesson is on physical chi, which enhances the body for both attack and defense. Helios doubles over, struggling to breathe after taking the full force of the demonstration. She internally expresses surprise that he withstood the blow, crediting his resilience to his role as the hero. Gasping for air, he can only glare up at his instructor, his mind reeling from her brutal methods. He realizes with a jolt that the seemingly casual attack could have been fatal. She remains perfectly composed, leaving Helios to question if his new instructor is completely unhinged. Before he can recover, she orders him to get up, announcing the next lesson is on elemental chi. With a smug grin, she conjures a ball of fire, advising him to simply endure what's coming. The second lesson covers elemental chi, which infuses raw energy with properties like fire or lightning. She then demonstrates by thrusting the flame toward him, explaining it's a power suited for long-range combat. Next up is material chi, the ability to enhance existing objects or create new ones from scratch. After another brutal demonstration, Helios is left on the floor as she explains this type favors creative minds. The relentless training has him trembling, barely able to stay upright on his knees. Finally, he collapses completely, utterly exhausted by the one-sided onslaught. With a cheerful smile, she declares the brutal training session is over for the day. Helios lies on the floor, barely conscious, but remembers there are still 2 more chi types. She explains the 4th type is mental chi, a power she finds personally distasteful. The final uncategorized type is her own, a rare power that defies simple classification. She cheerfully claims to dabble in all types while internally admitting this is a massive understatement. A flashback reveals her true power, complete mastery over all chi types, the very skill that made her queen of Niflheim. Helios grits his teeth in frustration as she internally notes her versatile power is perfect for training a beginner like him. As she reaches for him, his eyes widen in alarm, bracing for another lesson. She crouches down, gently placing a hand on the head of the exhausted hero. Instead of another attack, she simply pats his head, leaving him utterly bewildered by the gesture. She corrects him on her title, noting her dear prisoner seems to have no intention of memorizing his lessons. Helios recalls someone once told him that's not the proper way to handle someone's head. She insists the gesture was a compliment, a stark contrast to how she'd manhandled him before. With a disarming smile, she claims it's been a long time since he's been touched so gently. The hero is left completely baffled, internally questioning the true identity of this bizarre guard. He knows, even in his confusion, that a guard should never treat a prisoner this way. As he ponders her strange mix of protection and training, he silently demands to know who she really is. Changing the subject, she quizzes him on which of the three brutal demonstrations was the most bearable. Helios thoughtfully considers the question, trying to determine which attack felt the least awful. He decides the material chi attack was the easiest, as being flung by the spear was preferable to the other painful lessons. Helios connects the dots, realizing it's easier to defend against attacks of your own type. She confirms his theory, officially declaring him a material type chi user. He erupts in frustration, questioning if the entire brutal ordeal was just for that one discovery. A chibi version of her offers a cheerful congratulations for discovering his innate ability. Helios groans in annoyance, admitting her twisted logic somehow makes perfect sense. She lets out a small, amused sigh, completely unfazed by his outburst. He touches his face, a slow, dawning realization crossing his features. With a wry smirk, Helios declares that of all the lunatics he's met, she is by far the craziest. Her expression hardens as she once again reminds him of her proper title. She pokes his cheek, casually remarking that she went easy on him and he still has a long way to go. He internally questions her motives, still unable to understand why this strange guard is helping him. Yet he admits to himself that he's reaching his breaking point and can't survive this hell alone. Touching his cheek, he acknowledges that for now, her bizarre warmth is a welcome change. With a faint smile, he decides to accept her confusing kindness, whatever the reason behind it. He looks up with a challenging smirk, warning her to take full responsibility for her actions. The scene shifts to the 96th floor of the tower, a vast and opulent hall. A woman with pink hair and a prominent scar lets out a bored yawn. Nearby, a man lies on the ground, clearly a victim of some unseen affliction. The woman, Ramona, taps her cheek impatiently, wondering where her boss is, her specialty revealed as poison generation. She glances over her shoulder, just as a familiar figure appears in the distant doorway. A man peeks from cover, wondering how Ramona climbed so high so fast and if she'd been hiding her true power. Casually sitting on her latest victim, Ramona notes it's been 2 months since she's seen her boss. She recalls a pattern, realizing her boss tends to cause a major incident every 2 months. She concludes that he's overdue for another one of his chaotic episodes. The scene cuts back to Mint and Helios, where she calmly instructs him to jump from a perilous ledge. Helios stares back in disbelief, utterly baffled by her reckless command. With a disturbingly patient smile, she repeats the instruction, urging him to trust her and take the leap. He furiously points to the pit of deadly spikes below, questioning the logic of her suicidal plan. She coolly dismisses his panic, offering a simple guarantee of his safety. A time skip reveals that 2 months later, Helios has safely reached the 7th floor, leaving him to grumble about his instructor's methods. A fellow guard informs her that new orders have arrived, assigning her to more dangerous prisoners. He speculates that she must have angered a superior, as rookies are never given such difficult tasks. She feigns innocence, internally recalling her perfectly normal social interactions. A flashback reveals her literal interpretation of brewing tea resulted in a superior getting a scalding surprise. Another memory shows her burning a pile of documents after being told she never had to see them again. She even blocked a sergeant from a warehouse, following the order to let no one in to the letter. Her true self smirks, realizing her calculated incompetence has earned her the exclusive right to guard the hero. Back in the present, Helios stares down from the ledge, still questioning her absurd order to jump. She coolly calls out his lack of faith, but he retorts that her training methods feel more like murder attempts. She dismisses his fear, claiming this extreme training is perfect for his material type, but he's not convinced. Helios reluctantly accepts her twisted logic, realizing this is better than dying in the tower. She tells him to simply think of a way to save himself on the way down, a challenge he can't refuse. Before he can fully process the command, he feels a sudden force from behind. With a firm shove, his instructor sends him plummeting over the edge. Helios screams in fury as he falls, cursing the unhinged guard who just pushed him. She waves cheerfully from the ledge, completely unfazed by his panicked cries. A satisfied smile crosses her face as her extreme training method unfolds. Just before he hits the spikes, a brilliant web of golden chi materializes, catching him midair. He lies in the energy net, covering his face in utter disbelief at what just happened. She peers over the edge, briefly wondering if he's hurt before dismissing the idea as impossible. Helios lies in the energy net, completely baffled by how he survived the fall. She smugly explains that this is a world where common sense simply doesn't apply. He covers his face, struggling to process the impossible feat he just performed. She cryptically tells him he'll soon understand this lack of logic, both inside the tower and beyond its walls, before she turns to leave. As she walks away, she senses an unfamiliar gaze watching them from a nearby window. She internally rules out the warden, noting the observer's presence is far too unrefined. Her mind races as she tries to identify the mysterious onlooker. The following day, a group of inmates led by a smug blonde man approaches them with a taunt. Helios looks on in confusion while his instructor remains completely unfazed by the provocation. Helios recognizes the man as a high-ranking prisoner, wondering why he's in their low-level sector. From the shadows, Sergeant Kane watches, identifying Helios as the troublemaker at the center of the conflict. The sergeant smirks, vowing to teach the rookie guard a lesson for associating with the notorious inmate. The blonde inmate taunts Helios, accusing him of getting arrogant from the guard's special treatment. He leans in with a malicious grin, clearly trying to provoke a violent reaction. Suddenly, Helios feels an immense, unseen pressure, leaving him completely bewildered. A dark aura envelops him, and he finds himself completely paralyzed by an invisible force. The taunting inmate is revealed to be the source, crushing Helios with his oppressive chi. Just then, his instructor's hand moves, a subtle glow emanating from her fingertips. The crushing pressure vanishes instantly, and Helios looks up in surprise as the oppressive atmosphere clears. She grabs Helios's wrist, casually mentioning the day's meal to pull him away from the conflict. With a firm grip on his sleeve, she urges him to hurry, using the excuse of food to avoid a fight. Helios is stunned as he realizes the immense pressure has suddenly and completely disappeared. The blonde inmate is left speechless, wondering how his target so easily escaped his telekinetic grip. She glances back coolly, her expression giving nothing away about her secret intervention. As the furious inmate demands they stop, she places a hand on Helios's back, halting their retreat. The inmate, groggy, furiously questions her right to interfere, unaware of who he's truly facing. She calmly identifies the prisoner by name, reminding him of the severe consequences for attacking a guard. Enraged by her calm demeanor, Groggy unleashes his dark chi, preparing a deadly attack. A glimpse of her true self reveals the powerful queen hidden beneath the rookie guard's disguise. Groggy grits his teeth, suddenly collapsing under an immense, unseen pressure. He finds himself completely paralyzed, unable to understand why his body won't respond. Looking up, he's horrified to realize the rookie guard is the source of the telekinetic force pinning him down. She intends for Helios to watch closely, framing this as a crucial lesson. Her words sink in, warning him that this place defies all logic and that more trials are coming. As she calmly walks away from the scene, she promises him this is only the beginning. While the inmate panics on the floor, she coolly decides on a simple solution to his outburst. With a casual flick of her wrist, she sends a small projectile flying straight at the helpless man. The gesture is precise and effortless, a subtle display of her overwhelming power. A cheerful smile plays on her lips as she decides to give the troublemaker a gentle reminder of his place. The projectile finds its mark, causing the arrogant inmate to cry out in sudden, sharp pain. She stands over him with a foot on his chest, asserting her dominance as Helios watches the lesson unfold. The inmate struggles futilely against her boot, his defiance completely crushed by her overwhelming pressure. Helios recalls her lesson, realizing elemental users are most vulnerable when their hands are neutralized. She internally decides that a light tap is all that's needed to put this particular troublemaker in his place. Just then, Helios's eyes widen in alarm as another unexpected event unfolds before him. Two knives suddenly materialize and embed themselves in the floor, shocking the onlookers. He grabs a nearby inmate, furiously denying any involvement and questioning who would attack a guard. She cleverly feigns injury, pretending she was caught off guard by the sudden attack. Leaning against the concerned hero, she cheekily suggests he'll have to take care of his injured instructor. She declares that from now on, any action she takes will be considered self-defense. Helios watches in confusion as she channels a brilliant golden energy from her hand. To his utter disbelief, the energy materializes into an ordinary-looking broom. With a confident smirk and a snap of her fingers, she sends the enchanted broom into action. The two other inmates are sent into a panic as the broom begins to chase them relentlessly. It then unleashes a powerful attack, sending the troublemakers flying across the room. She points to the chaos, where the broom has now pinned the lead instigator to the floor. Standing beside the stunned hero, she explains this is the ultimate form of his material type ability. The narrative clarifies this is an ego weapon, a self-moving object that defies the traditional definition of a weapon. Helios is left speechless as she claims to only dabble in every ability, a claim he finds hard to believe. She strikes a confident pose, internally impressed with her own performance. Helios's expression hardens, realizing she's far more powerful than she lets on. She turns to him with a smug smile, playfully asking about his cheek. He looks back with genuine concern as she asks if he's okay. She touches her own cheek, amused that her disciple is now worried about her. A chibi version reveals she deliberately created the wound to justify her actions under the guise of self-defense. Helios earnestly confirms that he is, in fact, worried about her. He sincerely expresses his hope that his master doesn't get hurt again. Her true self is shown, internally pleased that he finally called her by her chosen title. She casually agrees to try, internally noting that avoiding harm is no challenge for her. She deflects his concern, dryly suggesting the cafeteria must be out of meat. Later that night, the consequences of her actions begin to unfold. News of the incident spreads like wildfire throughout the prison. A furious senior officer learns that a rookie guard took down a high-level inmate. He erupts in anger, questioning her sanity for openly attacking such a prisoner. Unfazed, she gives a cheerful thumbs up, insisting she handled it by the book. The officer orders her to stop creating conflict and handle matters quietly. She internally scoffs, having no intention of following his advice. Completely exasperated, the officer declares that she is the root of the problem. He questions her dedicated guard act, but she coolly reminds him she's just following orders. The officer scolds her, insisting she should have let the prisoner take a beating. She internally admits that her superior has a point. She knows that as the hero, Helios is destined to overcome trials by himself. But she also knows the true horrors of this prison and feels compelled to intervene. She believes the prison is filled with dangerous individuals and Helios is not yet strong enough to face them. She concludes he's too precious to be broken, earning a bewildered look from her superior. The officer correctly deduces that she wouldn't have summoned him without a purpose. He grudgingly admits she's annoyingly perceptive and must have a solution to the problem she created. The officer announces a change in her duties, dismissing her without further explanation. She calmly accepts the new orders and turns to leave the exasperated officer behind. The officer watches her leave, realizing Helios is a man who would do anything for freedom. He sees the hero as the perfect single-minded chess piece for his own strategic game. The officer decides on a new specific role for the prisoner to play in his schemes. Back in the office, another guard is left utterly confused by the new orders. The concerned guard questions why the rookie would willingly accept such a harsh punishment. She remains completely unbothered, calmly brushing off his concerns about her new assignment. Reluctantly, her colleague accepts her decision and grabs a set of keys from his desk. With the jingling keys in hand, he announces it's time for them to proceed. The scene cuts to a cell where Helios sits quietly, lost in his own thoughts. His contemplation is interrupted as his instructor appears, summoning him from the cell. She informs him that as punishment for his recent trouble, he's being moved to a new cell. The new cell is surprisingly clean, decorated with a strange, web-like pattern in the corner. Helios is stunned to find 2 beds, realizing he's been assigned to a double room. He takes a hesitant step back as the guards confirm his new living arrangement. The senior guard formally addresses Helios, preparing to introduce his new cellmate. To his shock, his instructor is introduced as his new fellow prisoner, Garrett. She internally confirms her mission hasn't changed. She's now undercover as a prisoner to protect him. Helios stares in utter disbelief, struggling to understand why she would do this. She meets his confused gaze with a calm, unreadable expression. Her orders are clear: monitor and protect her VIP target around the clock, no matter the cost. The guards explain the new arrangement as they prepare to leave the 2 prisoners alone. They're told a directive from the top requires them to be monitored together before being sent to the 20th floor. Helios is left completely dumbfounded, unable to comprehend the bizarre situation. With a final ominous wish of good luck, the guards slam the cell door shut. As Helios demands answers, she casually dismisses his confusion with a wave of her hand. She playfully wonders what he should call her now, much to his growing frustration. He furiously points out she's being imprisoned for a fight where no one was seriously harmed. She calmly confirms his suspicion, admitting the higher-ups simply wanted her locked away. When he calls the situation unfair, she scoffs at the very idea of justice in the tower. She reminds him once again that this is a place where conventional morals simply don't apply. Helios clenches his fist, questioning her complete lack of anger over being imprisoned. She calmly accepts her fate as a simple consequence of her actions, much to his disbelief. Her true self reveals this is a calculated outcome, even admitting the warden's decisions are surprisingly sound. She internally notes that this new arrangement allows her to monitor and protect him around the clock. The stakes are suddenly raised as they're being sent to the 20th floor, a virtual death sentence for him. However, she was specifically ordered to accompany him on this deadly new trial. She interprets this as a direct order to carry her fledgling hero through the tower's deadliest floors. With a confident smirk, she prepares to give him an express ride to survival. Back in the present, Helios is still reeling, completely unable to process the turn of events. He finally gives in, telling her to call him whatever she wants, too overwhelmed to argue any longer. Helios presses his new cellmate for a plan, questioning her strategy now that she's also a prisoner. His expression turns serious as a sudden thought occurs to him. He abruptly grabs her wrist, interrupting their conversation. Pulling her closer, he begins to inspect her, leaving her completely flustered. He gently touches her face, his intense gaze searching for something. A chibi panel reveals her internal confusion at his sudden, strange behavior. She questions his actions, her composure rattled by the unexpected closeness. Her true self realizes his intention, her expression hardening as she understands his concern. The camera reveals Helios is covered in fresh bruises, a testament to his recent struggles. She deduces he's been targeted by other inmates ever since the rumors of her protection began to spread. He turns the tables, checking his instructor for injuries and demanding to know the full extent of the damage. Ignoring her protests, he lifts her shirt to continue his inspection, revealing more faint bruises. His expression hardens as he demands to know the names of the inmates who attacked her. She coolly questions why he's so concerned about whether or not she was hurt. He grabs her collar, insisting he should care because he knows he's the reason she was targeted. She tries to dismiss his concern, but he looks away, clearly flustered by her logic. She presses him for the truth, asking if her name came up during the attack. Completely flustered, Helios turns away and vehemently denies that anyone mentioned her. A chibi panel shows her looking thoughtful while he complains about her informal way of speaking. She explains her casual tone is because they're both prisoners now, but he grumbles that she's relentlessly persistent. She leans in, correcting him and demanding he use her proper title. She warns him that the 20th floor is no joke and his life depends on these lessons. The gravity of the situation sinks in as he finally understands her demand. After a moment of tense silence, he seems to reach a decision. He reluctantly agrees, finally addressing her by her chosen title. His sudden compliance leaves her unexpectedly flustered, a rare crack in her composure. Her true self, however, is internally pleased, praising his obedience. She reminds him again that the real challenges begin on the 20th floor. She sits on her bed, offering him a chance to resent her for dragging him into this mess. Helios looks back with surprising resolve, refusing to blame her for their shared predicament. Helios grows flustered, questioning if her sudden kindness is just an act. She casually leans back, amused by his suspicion, while he insists he doesn't blame her for their situation. With a smug smile, she once again corrects his form of address, demanding her proper title. Her expression turns serious as she summons him to her bedside with a simple command. He reluctantly obeys, and she internally notes his surprising obedience despite all his complaints. As he stands over her, she declares it's time for lights out, leaving him completely baffled. Peeking from her covers, she playfully asks her disciple to turn off the light for her. The scene shifts to the imposing prison tower under the dark, starry sky. Later that night, she is shown sleeping soundly in her new cell. Helios, however, lies wide awake in his own bed, his mind clearly racing with thoughts. He silently questions his instructor's complete lack of anger over her imprisonment. As she sleeps soundly, he turns away, frustrated by her calm acceptance of their fate. His thoughts drift to a dark memory, recalling the false charges brought against him. A sinister figure from his past smirks, the man responsible for framing him for a terrible crime. The villain's cruel laugh echoes in his mind, a symbol of the injustice he suffered. The painful memory causes Helios to cry out, jolting him from his troubled thoughts. He sits up, gasping for breath as the weight of his past comes crashing down. Overwhelmed by despair, he covers his face, unable to hold back his tears. He realizes with burning certainty that he is the true victim in this twisted tale. Clenching his fists in anguish, he silently vows to never forgive those who wronged him. He remembers his ultimate goal, to return home and exact revenge on his wretched grandfather. A faint purple energy gathers in his hand as he focuses his newfound resolve. Facing the cell bars, he clenches his fist, knowing he must survive to see his plan through. His face hardens with cold fury as he promises to make the man who framed him pay. The scene shifts to a bright morning, signaling the start of a new day in the prison. His cellmate wakes up with a dramatic stretch and a loud yawn. She opens an eye, her attention immediately drawn to the brooding hero. She casually remarks on his exhausted appearance, earning a sharp retort to mind her own business. Unfazed, she tries to lift his spirits by mentioning the nice weather, despite the lack of a window. Helios watches her, concluding that she seems to have a screw loose and is even stranger as a prisoner. She reveals that from the 20th floor, prisoners can challenge the tower at any time. With a cheerful thumbs up, she announces their first attempt will be today, much to his dismay. Leaning back with a confident smile, she offers him a crucial tip before they begin. She explains the first key to survival is finding a powerful backer for protection. She then smugly presents herself as his perfect mentor, leaving him unimpressed by her self-praise. As she prepares to reveal the second tip, Helios listens with a serious expression. Without warning, a golden rope of energy materializes and binds his wrist. The energy rope yanks him forward, pulling him face first onto the bed in a painful tumble. He glares up from the mattress, furiously demanding an explanation for the sudden assault. She grins, calling it a surprise attack and warning him to get used to defending himself. She scoffs at his protest, reminding him that enemies in the tower won't play fair. This leads to her second tip, the importance of finding strong allies to survive. She insists that he can't hope to make it through this dangerous place on his own. Using a metaphor of fish, she explains the concept of safety in numbers, but he remains skeptical. She cheerfully dismisses his cynicism, declaring her lesson is over for now. With the lecture finished, she orders him to get up, announcing it's time to face the tower. The scene shifts to the 20th floor, revealing a vast golden wheat field inside the stone tower. Helios and the other prisoners are completely baffled by the surreal agricultural landscape. Overwhelmed by the bizarre turn of events, Helios lets out an exhausted yawn. His instructor places a reassuring hand on his back, but he's more concerned by her unnerving calm. She explains the large crowd is full of repeat challengers who have failed the trial before. Helios questions how that's possible since failure in the tower is supposed to mean death. Before she can answer, a booming voice announces the start of the 20th floor trial. The voice mockingly wishes them luck surviving as the challenge officially begins. Suddenly, a shimmering blue barrier materializes, separating them from the larger group of prisoners. She calmly explains the tower sometimes separates challengers based on their skill level. Looking around, she deduces they've been isolated with only the first-time challengers. She grips his shoulder, ominously suggesting this separation hints at the extreme difficulty ahead. With a cheerful thumbs up, she tells him to try surviving on his own for a while. Leaning in close, she addresses him as her dear disciple, leaving him visibly flustered. Suddenly, a pack of monstrous red-eyed hounds bursts from the shadows, ready to attack. Helios braces himself with a spear, annoyed by the sudden appearance of these vicious beasts. Nearby, another prisoner is knocked to the ground, crying out as he's overwhelmed by the assault. The terrified man pleads for his life as one of the hounds lunges in for the final blow. Just in time, Helios grabs the man by the hair, yanking him out of harm's way. He stands guard over the rescued inmate, ready to fend off any further attacks. He calmly reassures the grateful prisoner, telling him to hold on a little longer. The rescued man looks over, his curiosity piqued by the stranger who just saved him. He then points towards Helios's instructor, who is casually relaxing on a haystack, completely unbothered by the chaos. She winks smugly, explaining to herself that she's simply offering her disciple some long-distance moral support. She casually praises her unseen ally as a golden light strikes down one of the vicious hounds. She then commends another invisible force as a pile of defeated hounds appears beneath a golden glow. The rescued inmate questions the instructor's bizarre behavior, wondering what her purpose is. A sharp-eyed female prisoner joins the conversation, admitting she has the same question. Her focus shifts to Helios, remarking that his abilities are completely unfamiliar to her. Helios wearily admits his own ignorance, sensing that something about this trial feels deeply wrong. His suspicion is confirmed as a massive new wave of hounds emerges from the shadows, ending their brief respite. Her true self smirks, noting his growing awareness and deciding to give him one final clue. A grim realization dawns on Helios as he questions if this trial is an endless, unwinnable fight. Nearby, the prisoner Helios rescued earlier reveals a knowing and mysterious smile, hinting he knows more than he lets on. The rescued inmate smiles, whispering the hero's name with a knowing look. He offers a cryptic warning, telling Helios to remain vigilant. Helios looks on, sensing a new powerful presence approaching. His eyes widen in alarm as he realizes the true threat is yet to come. The other prisoners panic, sensing the new danger and bracing for another attack. Even Helios is baffled, unable to identify the source of the impending threat. Suddenly, a golden spear materializes from thin air, striking a target hidden in the wheat. Helios turns in shock, stunned by the unexpected and powerful intervention. The mysterious spear impales a large, shadowy creature disguised as a haystack. Helios stands ready with his own weapon, questioning the origin of the sudden assistance. He turns in alarm as a shadowy figure launches a surprise attack from behind. He realizes with dread that another enemy was hiding, and he's too late to dodge. Yet the expected blow never lands, leaving him to stare in stunned confusion. A second golden flash of light intercepts the attack, neutralizing another hidden assailant. His instructor's smug smile reveals she was the one who secretly saved him again. The rescued inmate steps forward, casually remarking on the close call as if it were nothing. The two now stand over the fallen enemy, a strange scarecrow-like creature. A closer look reveals the creature was a literal scarecrow, armed with a sharp blade. Helios scratches his head, completely baffled by the absurdity of fighting armed scarecrows. The mysterious inmate cheerfully praises his work, calling the scarecrow a fitting assassin for a wheat field. The mysterious inmate reveals the true boss of this floor is a surprise attack you can't see coming. He explains the tower's brutal logic. Failing to anticipate the hidden threat means certain death. Helios realizes the endless waves of hounds were merely a distraction for the real assassins. The sheer absurdity of the trial leaves Helios reeling, convinced the tower is completely unhinged. A system message abruptly announces the end of the trial, mockingly congratulating them on their survival. The inmate casually congratulates Helios, noting the trial was unusually difficult but they passed safely. Helios silently acknowledges that he owes his life to his instructor's unseen interventions. The inmate seems to read his mind, teasing him for his unspoken gratitude, much to Helios's annoyance. Trying to cheer him up, the inmate explains the trial's difficulty scales with the challenger's power. Meanwhile, his instructor smirks to herself, admitting she had to intervene because his strength drew out more enemies than she anticipated. The other challengers are shown battered and bruised, but they all manage to survive the ordeal. As the trial concludes, the survivors begin to file out through a large stone exit. Helios glances back at his instructor, a suspicious look crossing his face. His eyes narrow as he pieces together the true nature of the trial and her role in it. He realizes the spot where she was relaxing was the epicenter of the scarecrow attacks. The rescued inmate stretches, completely bewildered as he wonders about the instructor's true identity. Back in the common area, the survivors disperse, leaving Helios and his master to themselves. Helios approaches his instructor, a serious question forming on his lips. He recalls the sudden attack in their cell that morning, seeing it in a new light. He confronts her, realizing her seemingly random assault was actually a calculated training exercise. She smirks, amused by his naive understanding of her methods. The rescued inmate leans in, quietly warning Helios to be more discreet with his observations. Helios is left completely flustered by the inmate's overly familiar and teasing tone. She stretches smugly, acknowledging his perceptiveness as he panics in the background. Overwhelmed, Helios tries to make himself small as his instructor walks past, ignoring his turmoil. The rescued inmate casually drapes an arm over Helios, interrupting the tense moment. The cheerful inmate waves, asking if Helios remembers him from the chaotic trial. Helios looks back with concern, recalling the severe injuries the man had sustained. His instructor casually explains that on this floor, all wounds magically heal, leaving Helios stunned. The inmate confirms her story, introducing himself as Ged Satine and crediting the strange rule for his survival. Ged Satine firmly shakes Helios's hand, formally introducing himself. His instructor watches from the side, noting how Helios, usually so guarded, responds to the friendly gesture. She realizes with a touch of annoyance that Helios's prickly attitude is reserved exclusively for her. Ged offers a cheerful greeting, his friendly demeanor putting Helios at ease. She internally sizes up the newcomer, concluding he's the overly friendly type who gets along with everyone. Despite the friendly introduction, Helios abruptly turns and walks away, leaving Ged confused. Ged catches up, questioning why Helios is ignoring him, but Helios remains dismissive. Helios looks back with a hint of irritation, preparing to justify his cold shoulder. He bluntly states that he's simply not interested in making friends, maintaining his aloof stance. Ged expression turns serious as he declares that Helios is the only person he's interested in. Ged intense gaze is fixed solely on Helios, his declaration leaving the hero stunned. Completely flustered, Helios tries to deflect, suggesting Ged must be interested in his master instead. Ged dismisses the idea of a misunderstanding, while Helios complains about his ambiguous choice of words. He explains that Helios is the only one who can help him escape, leaving the hero blushing and bewildered. Helios seems to reluctantly accept this strange proposition, much to Ged surprise. Ged begins to explain his reasoning as Helios listens, still flustered by the attention. He thoughtfully notes that Helios's master seems to be kind to all prisoners, hinting at a plan. The instructor is momentarily taken aback, internally admitting his charming face is dangerously persuasive. She quickly dismisses the thought, reminding herself that Helios isn't her personal prisoner, which only confuses him more. A flustered chibi Helios finally understands her reasoning, while Ged watches the exchange with a thoughtful expression. Ged casually identifies a passing red-haired prisoner as a woman named Hyla. The instructor internally notes that Hyla's survival to this floor is thanks to two of her other acquaintances. Ged glances back at Helios, his expression turning sly and inquisitive. Helios is suddenly flustered, completely caught off guard by Ged's knowing stare. Leaning in close, Ged playfully questions if the woman who just passed is Helios's type. He then laughs it off, explaining he was only teasing because Helios was staring so intently. Ged continues his teasing, comparing Helios's intense focus to that of a jealous child. The instructor coolly dismisses Ged's commentary, telling him to stop spouting nonsense as she walks away. Ged turns back to Helios with a charming smile, sharing a moment of mutual bewilderment. The story jumps forward a few days, with an imposing view of the prison tower. A system message confirms they've survived yet another trial, this time on the 23rd floor. Helios is deeply troubled, wondering why a certain thing keeps appearing in every trial since the 21st floor. Ged casually asks if he's talking about bugs, causing Helios to panic and demand he not mention them. He desperately tries to hide his face, insisting he's not scared, just disgusted by the giant insects. Ged finds his reaction hilarious, teasing him for being as scared as a child, which only infuriates Helios more. Their bickering is interrupted as another prisoner calls out Helios's name, drawing their attention. A red-haired man cheerfully waves, introducing his group of companions, including the familiar face of Hyla. The newcomer excitedly praises the amazing way the giant bug was flattened by an equally giant fly swatter. Cutting through the chatter, Ged expression turns serious as he asks the group what they want. He steps in front of Helios, noting that their sudden arrival suggests they have a specific purpose. The red-haired man and his group stand before Helios, their expressions a mix of hope and desperation. In a surprising move, the entire group bows deeply, begging Helios to take them on as his disciples. Helios flatly refuses, his cold expression showing he has no interest in training anyone. The leader argues that Helios's past as a warden who protected new prisoners should compel him to help. Unmoved, Helios dismisses his past, telling the group to leave and never bother him again. He punctuates his dismissal with a stomp, sending a wave of energy through the floor. Turning his back, he callously suggests they try their luck finding a teacher in the West Lounge. Hyla looks defeated, muttering that no one would accept them anyway, though she holds on to a faint hope. His instructor observes from a distance, noting that other powerful prisoners have also rejected this group. As Hyla bows in despair, the instructor internally shrugs, deciding their plight is not her problem. The rejected group shuffles away in defeat, with the instructor internally dismissing their plight. Ged observes her coldness, silently comparing her indifferent attitude to that of a villain. He turns to Helios, questioning why he didn't challenge her callous remark about the other prisoners. Helios seems confused, but Ged reminds him of the group's desperate claim that no one would help them. His instructor internally notes that his deep-seated concern for others gives him strong main character energy. She calls out as he walks away, reminding her disciple that he's forgetting this is a prison. With a sly wink, she declares that in this place there are no heroes to pity or villains to condemn. Her stark philosophy leaves Helios momentarily speechless as he follows her down the hall. Meanwhile, the rejected group's leader is violently ambushed by other inmates for his defiance. The attackers reveal their price, demanding he hand over Hyla in exchange for his own safety. Hyla is left utterly speechless, her expression a mask of pure shock and terror. She desperately cries for help as her companion is overpowered, but Helios and his master simply observe. The instructor turns to leave, but Helios is stunned by her blatant refusal to intervene. She coolly asks why she should bother helping, leaving Helios at a complete loss for words. She reminds him of her official role as a warden, using it as an excuse to avoid trouble. Leaning in close, she declares that her one and only priority is keeping him safe. Her intense focus leaves Helios blushing and flustered by her surprisingly direct words. A pained cry echoes from the hallway, but the instructor's cold expression remains unchanged. Hyla struggles desperately as one of the attackers grabs her pleas for release ignored. The instructor glances back at Helios, pointedly asking if the grim scene truly bothers him. She challenges him directly, giving him permission to go and help the woman in distress. With a confident smile, she reminds him that his training makes him more than a match for these thugs. Helios turns away, flustered but resolute, insisting he was going to intervene anyway. Without another word, he sprints toward the confrontation, leaving his instructor to watch. Hyla watches his sudden approach, completely bewildered by the unexpected arrival of a new player. Seeing an unseen danger, she cries out a desperate warning for him to be careful. A flashback reveals a promise her mother asked her to make, to always help those in trouble. The younger Hyla scoffs at the idea, questioning the logic of helping everyone in a cruel world. Her mother offers a compromise, suggesting she only needs to help those she can reach. In the present, Helios proves his resolve by swiftly intercepting one of the assailants with a powerful strike. Helios clutches his glowing weapon, realizing his opponent is too strong to find an easy opening. With a look of pure determination, he decides that if he can't find an opening, he'll create one. The furious inmate lunges forward, refusing to be humiliated by a lower-ranked prisoner. Helios takes the hit, a sly grin revealing he's just baited his opponent into a trap. He seizes the attacker's arm, his energy-wielding hand ready to strike. With a swift counter, he sends the inmate reeling backward from the unexpected force. The other thugs are stunned by the turn of events and decide to swarm him all at once. Unfazed, Helios calmly prepares to neutralize the incoming wave of attackers. He effortlessly stops another punch, causing his assailant to plead for his life. Suddenly, Ged Satan appears, casually holding up a defeated thug and remarking on his own fighting prowess. Ged Satan smirks, admitting the fight was hardly a challenge for him. Helios questions Ged's sudden intervention, reminding him of his promise to stay out of it. Ged leans in close, playfully explaining that a master must protect his disciple, leaving Helios completely flustered. The scene cuts to a sunlit office, far from the chaos of the prison brawl. An official reads a report detailing Ged's deliberate involvement in the cafeteria fight. The officer deduces Ged's actions were a calculated move to get the attention of the higher-ups. Ged offers a half-hearted apology, internally noting the officer is misinterpreting his true motives. The officer demands a solution, but Ged cheekily suggests following the manual, forcing his superior to find a loophole. The officer considers a specific clause that allows intervention in cases of insults, searching for a justification. Hyla is brought in for questioning, admitting she didn't directly hear the insults, but implying she knows what was said. Ged reveals to Hyla that she and Helios are the reason his group got into trouble. He explains that other inmates were spreading malicious rumors about the two of them. Hyla correctly guesses the crude nature of the rumors and questions if that's why he intervened. Ged confirms he couldn't stand by while they were being slandered, even though he owes her. She dismisses his actions as unnecessary, expressing regret despite appreciating his intentions. As Ged tends to his injured friend, he cryptically tells Hyla she may owe him a debt one day. Ged explains to the officer that the rumors were predictable given Hyla's noble status and Helios' arrival. The officer accepts this reasoning, understanding a noble's pride, and dismisses Ged to handle the situation. With a grateful bow, Ged exits the office, leaving the officer to his decision. However, his respectful demeanor hides a determined glance as he mentally addresses his true master. Back with the group he rescued, Helios confirms they're more or less okay. The group's leader gratefully thanks Helios, but is confused as to why he is still around. Helios tries to brush them off and walk away with Ged, but the grateful prisoner won't let him leave. The leader turns his attention to Ged, asking for training, only to be bluntly rejected. Hyla pleads their case, but the instructor appears and shuts her down with a firm no. The instructor's cold gaze fixes on Ged, clarifying her rejection was meant for him as a purple aura surrounds her. Ged's expression hardens as he realizes she's a powerful mental-type user. She unleashes a wave of psychic energy, calling out Helios's name and catching him completely off guard. Helios cries out, clutching his head as he's overwhelmed by the sudden mental attack. Ged watches the scene with a grim, calculating expression, analyzing the instructor's true power. Hyla panics, desperately trying to explain her conversation with Ged to the instructor. She clarifies that Ged had told her about the vicious rumors involving both her and Helios. The instructor realizes with annoyance that Ged can also use telepathy, intercepting her thoughts. Suddenly, glowing orbs of energy materialize above Hyla's group, startling them. The entire group cries out in agony, clutching their heads under an unseen psychic assault. Ged calmly declares he dislikes losing control and prepares to deal with the situation himself. Before he can act, Helios's hand shoots out, grabbing his sleeve to stop him. Overwhelmed by the mental attack, Helios leans on Ged, begging him to wait a moment. He looks up in pain, questioning why his master wouldn't intervene to help the group. Helios insists they owe the group their help, as they were the ones who stood up for them. She dismisses his plea as nonsense, but Helios struggles to get his point across. She stands over the fallen hero, warning him not to misunderstand her cold logic. She coldly states they have no responsibility for the group's fate, even if they were defended. With a knowing smile, she reminds him that her only mission is to protect him. He admits he understands her position, but she questions his stubborn insistence on helping. Wincing in pain, he reminds her of her own lesson about the importance of making allies. He looks up in pained confusion, questioning her contradictory advice. Meanwhile, the other prisoners cower in fear, still trapped in her psychic onslaught. A confident smirk reveals she's fully in control of the situation. She finally confirms his point is correct, validating his defiant stance. She points to Helios, declaring he will be their new leader. The group eagerly agrees, and she announces it's time for introductions. Helios's eyes glow as he prepares to assess the new recruit's hidden talents. He activates his mind's eye, a mental ability that reveals a person's true potential. The red-haired leader introduces himself as Ged Satine, a physical fighter with good potential. Hyla apologizes for her earlier behavior, revealing she's a mental type specializing in charm. Another man, Seth, introduces himself, and Helios senses he's hiding a powerful material-based ability. A cheerful prisoner named Brett introduces himself, but Helios immediately pegs him as a troublemaker. The instructor's true self is surprised by this unusual and eclectic mix of prisoners. She realizes this group's combined skills are the perfect support team for a hero like Helios. The instructor internally wonders if this perfectly assembled team is a sign of Helios's protagonist status. With introductions concluded, she turns her attention directly to Hyla, who listens nervously. She issues a stern warning to Ged, telling him not to provoke her by using Helios as bait again. Hyla and the other Ged Satine reluctantly agree, understanding there will be no second chances. Hyla's curiosity gets the better of her as she questions the complicated relationship between Helios and his master. The instructor shuts down the inquiry, possessively declaring that Helios is her only concern. Her intense words leave Helios completely flustered as he tries to downplay her statement by insulting her. A chibi argument erupts as she gets offended, while he blames her for her own confusing choice of words. She questions his sudden return to informal speech, but he simply states it's his choice, leaving Hyla to speculate. The scene shifts to another prisoner, who cries out in pain while struggling to control a complex magic circle. A chibi Helios enthusiastically directs his new team's training, much to their visible distress. Ged Satine watches the harsh training regimen with concern, questioning Helios's methods. He whispers his disapproval, calling the process of awakening Seth's abilities unnecessarily cruel. A flashback shows the instructor singling out a female prisoner, ordering her to use her healing abilities. The prisoner is confused, insisting she's a telekinetic, but the instructor knows her true potential is untapped. She panics, completely unaware of any healing powers she might possess. Helios confidently intervenes, giving a thumbs up and promising he knows how to unlock her hidden skills. His method involves creating a traumatic illusion of a dying comrade to force her powers to the surface. The brutal tactic works, awakening her latent healing magic through sheer desperation. Though disgusted by the method, Gedsatine can't deny that Helios has successfully trained the group on his own. The instructor's true self watches the training, wondering if it's too easy since the team seems to be getting along. Helios pushes Hyla to her limits, explaining her mental powers need to be stronger for the floors ahead. Despite the grueling training, the exhausted team successfully clears the tower up to the 24th floor. The instructor's expression turns grim, sensing the real challenge is about to begin. She looks up at the tower, knowing the trials from the 25th floor onward will be far more dangerous. The scene shifts to the dark and ominous 25th floor, where a new trial awaits. The floor is littered with the remains of a giant insect and a destroyed scarecrow, leaving the team breathless. One of the new recruits questions why the trial hasn't ended after they defeated all the scarecrows. Helios calmly informs the group that their ordeal is far from over. He smiles with confidence, revealing that this is just one part of a much larger trial. The team is stunned as a massive central wall unexpectedly begins to open. Through the parting wall, the silhouettes of another group of challengers emerge from the mist. A new, hardened group of prisoners steps forward, revealing they are not alone on this floor. Helios comes to the grim conclusion that their final opponents are other prisoners. His instructor confirms his grim realization, praising him for figuring it out so quickly. She assesses the new threat, noting their disadvantage in numbers and skill, and decides to intervene. Helios grabs her arm as she turns to leave, questioning her sudden departure. She calmly explains that this particular challenge is currently beyond his capabilities. He looks on in horror, asking if her plan is to neutralize the opposing team. She coldly confirms the trial's brutal design, challenging him on whether he has what it takes to survive. She gives him a stark choice: kill or be killed, pushing him to embrace the tower's cruelty. The brutal vision continues, showing a lone survivor being cornered for the final confrontation. Elsewhere on the floor, his new teammate Brett casually dispatches an enemy with a mocking smile. He gives a cheerful wave as the defeated prisoner is swallowed by darkness, officially out of the game. The desperate cries of the defeated echo through the hall, leaving Helios visibly disturbed by the violence. A system message abruptly ends the trial, sarcastically congratulating the wild dogs who survived. He questions the tower's logic as the system promises another chance for the defeated, a blatant contradiction to its deadly rules. The leader of the opposing team approaches, praising Helios for his impressive and unexpected actions during the trial. His new female teammates are completely starstruck, fawning over his impressive performance. Overwhelmed by the sudden adoration, Helios looks away, clearly uncomfortable with being the center of attention. His new teammates cheerfully thank him, celebrating their survival. But Helios is troubled, questioning why everyone is so calm when people were just eliminated. His teammates are completely baffled by his concern, having no idea what he's talking about. Gedsatine directs his attention to another group of prisoners nearby. He points out one of the defeated challengers, who is complaining about his failure. Helios is stunned, clearly remembering this same man being defeated during the trial. Jed explains the tower's bizarre rule. After the 20th floor, all injuries and even eliminations are reversed at the end of a trial. He teases Helios for being completely unaware of this crucial piece of information. Later that night, the imposing tower looms under a starry sky. Overwhelmed by the day's revelations, Helios sits alone, unable to process the tower's cruel and contradictory nature. Helios confronts Ged, demanding to know why he was kept in the dark about the tower's rules. Jed calmly explains he wanted Helios to discover the cruel truth on his own. As Helios questions the sanity of their prison, Ged insists that understanding its nature is the only way to overcome it. Jed reveals the tower's grim purpose: to force prisoners through an endless cycle of simulated death. He explains that the tower denies even the escape of death, trapping everyone in its twisted game. This cruel system means prisoners are forced to participate, unable to die or refuse the trials. Jed warns that this endless cycle is designed to shatter a person's spirit, a loss that can never be recovered. He then reveals his true goal: for Helios to reach the top without ever failing, preserving his will to fight. Helios questions the ultimate prize, wondering what could possibly justify such a harrowing journey. With a knowing smile, Ged reveals the ultimate reward, a genuine escape route. Ged Satane stretches, revealing his true desire is for Helios to be the one to escape the tower. He explains with a grim expression that this prison is a living hell he wants Helios to be free from. Suddenly, Helios's vision shifts, focusing on a mysterious figure with striking purple eyes. The mysterious figure's gaze seems to question what it's seeing, adding to the enigma. He sees the back of a woman with long, ethereal blue hair surrounded by a magical glow. Helios is left wondering about the identity of this mysterious woman who has appeared before him. The vision solidifies, revealing a serene-looking woman standing right in front of him. Ged turns back, questioning why Helios is staring at him with such a strange expression. Helios snaps out of it, realizing the mysterious woman has vanished and questioning if he imagined the whole thing. Ged dismisses the moment and heads to bed, reminding Helios that another difficult day awaits them. Helios is left blushing and confused, still reeling from the mysterious vision. The scene shifts to another trial, where the team battles giant mantises as Helios barks orders at a frustrated Hyla. Hyla points desperately at a teammate, overwhelmed by the intensity of the fight. Ged Satane confidently steps in, telling Helios to follow his lead as he prepares to handle the threat. Another teammate wipes his brow, remarking with surprise that the team is holding their own quite well. The instructor's true self smiles, noting their improved teamwork and skill. Just as they catch their breath, another wall opens, revealing the silhouettes of a new group of challengers. A system message reveals a crucial loophole. They only need to knock out the opposing team, not eliminate them. Armed with this new knowledge, Helios and his team decide to take the non-lethal route. The instructor shrugs, internally noting that their choice makes the trial harder, not easier. The team successfully neutralizes the last opponent, securing their victory without any eliminations. A mocking system message confirms they've cleared the 28th floor, leaving the team to process their harrowing experience. One teammate cheerfully praises Helios's leadership, but the hero remains characteristically annoyed by the physical contact. Ged Satane reflects on their smooth progress, but his attention shifts to Helios, identifying him as the real concern. Helios suddenly turns to face Ged, his intense and curious gaze catching the other man off guard. Helios nervously asks what's wrong, sensing a shift in Ged's demeanor. Ged internally notes Helios's recent strange behavior, but dismisses his concern, claiming it's nothing serious. Another teammate playfully accuses Ged of secretly disciplining Helios, adding to the awkward tension. Ged's flustered reaction confirms the joke was uncomfortably close to the truth, revealing he has indeed been rough with Helios before. Ged cheekily asks them to tone down their lovers' quarrels before making a quick exit, leaving a stunned Helios in his wake. Ged misinterprets Helios's flustered state as jealousy, but the hero knows that's definitely not the case. Composing himself, Helios prepares to ask Ged a question that has been weighing on his mind. With a serious look, he directly asks Ged if he happens to have a sister. The instructor's true self is annoyed by the bizarre question, wishing he'd focus on the trials instead. Ged quickly remembers his cover story and confirms he has a sister, piquing Helios's curiosity even more. Ged questions his sudden interest, but Helios insists the answer is critically important to him. After explaining she's fictional, Ged describes her, prompting Helios to comically imitate her features. Ged adds that his fictional sister is quite attractive, and Helios glumly admits he already figured as much. Helios's strange reaction leaves Ged blushing and confused, demanding an explanation. Ged continues the description, adding that she has long, waist-length hair, matching the woman from Helios's vision. Later that night, Helios tries to rest, but his mind is still racing from the strange conversation. He finds himself absurdly wondering what his own master would look like with long hair. The hero jolts upright in his bed, horrified by the direction his own thoughts are taking. Completely flustered, he questions his own sanity, unable to shake the bizarre mental image. His spiral is interrupted by Ged Satane, who appears fresh from a shower, looking surprisingly ethereal. Ged questions Helios's intense stare, casually explaining he was just getting cleaned up. Helios struggles to compose himself, blaming his earlier weird thoughts for his overreaction. His eyes drift to Ged's neck as he tries to rationalize his flustered state by reminding himself they are both men. His imagination runs wild, picturing a romantic moment as Ged leans in and whispers his name. Snapping back to reality, he finds Ged has pinned him to the bed, confirming he knew Helios was acting weird. Jed notes with concern that Helios looks thinner and has been zoning out constantly. He asks if Helios has been sleeping well, but the flustered hero weakly insists he's fine. Jed playfully threatens to stay up and watch him, which only makes Helios more agitated. The instructor's true self worries that his exhaustion will make the next trial dangerously difficult. Helios finally admits he hasn't slept much, prompting Ged to call him a handful. Jed jokingly suggests knocking him out to force him to rest, but Helios is not amused. His attempt to reassure Helios by mentioning his good control only makes the hero panic more. Deciding he's had enough of the complaints, Ged concludes there's only one method left. He orders Helios to lie down, his hand glowing ominously as he prepares his unusual solution. Jed pulls back the covers, explaining he'll put him to sleep by sharing body warmth, leaving Helios utterly stunned. Helios is completely flustered by the close contact, while Ged questions his panicked reaction. A flashback reveals Ged's actions are driven by a memory of a comforting maternal figure. Resigned, Helios lies down as Ged holds his hand, telling him it's time to rest for the next day's trial. Jed gently places his other hand over Helios's, a calming gesture to help him sleep. He internally scoffs at his own childish method, a faint blush dusting his cheeks. Overcome with embarrassment, Ged turns away, hiding his face in the pillow. Despite the awkwardness, the two men finally fall asleep, with Helios resting peacefully in Ged's arms. The scene cuts to an officer at his desk, confirming that the tower is undergoing maintenance. He informs a visiting Helios that the tower is temporarily closed to all prisoners. Helios immediately connects the dots, wondering if this maintenance means a new leader has taken charge. The officer explains that the tower's leader, the king of the inmates, holds more authority than anyone imagined. This powerful figure can even influence the trials, forcing the tower into maintenance during a leadership change. Impressed by his knowledge, the officer listens as Helios confirms the leader has already been replaced once before. Helios recalls the previous leader, a quiet but formidable woman with piercing pink eyes and blue hair. The officer finds the rapid change in leadership unusual and presses for information on the new king. Helios can only offer a rumor he's heard. The new leader is a woman, a fact that leaves him uneasy. He grimly realizes that this change means the contents of the tower's trials are about to shift dramatically. The scene cuts to the 29th floor, where the team is confronted by a bizarre and unsettling new landscape. As his teammate questions the blood-red soil, Ged grimly suggests the new leader has a taste for violence. Helios warns his team to be on high alert, sensing the boss on this floor will be unlike anything they've faced before. A scarecrow pants heavily on the ground, having narrowly survived an attack from a swarm of menacing snakes. It realizes with a shock that the snakes are poisonous, and even more bizarrely, that the scarecrow itself can speak. Jed stands amidst the red landscape, suddenly understanding the meaning behind Helios's earlier warning. His expression hardens as he pieces together the true nature of this floor's trial. He turns to reassure his team, but a sudden realization stops him mid-thought. Ignoring his team's questions, Ged begins to channel a powerful golden energy. He calmly tells his stunned teammates to stay out of it, preparing to face the danger alone. He unleashes a blinding flash of golden energy, engulfing the area in a powerful blast. The shockwave sends one of his teammates tumbling backward, gasping for air. His teammates complain about the rough push, while one notes with a blush that Helios was moved far more gently. Jed playfully calls Helios a precious princess, much to the hero's flustered annoyance. His playful demeanor vanishes as he cuts the chatter short, his expression turning serious. A monstrous snake with glowing red eyes emerges, leaving Helios stunned as Ged prepares for battle. The beast's fangs drip with a dark, menacing substance, its gaze fixed on its prey. A massive, spear-like object plummets from above, signaling an unbelievably powerful attack. He realizes the snake's poison is potent enough to take down even high-ranking inmates, questioning the trial's absurd difficulty. With energy crackling in his hand, Ged worries that this challenge is far beyond Helios's current abilities. The scene shifts, revealing a conversation where the officer notes an unusual and chaotic spike in deaths among high-level prisoners. Jed listens intently, his expression hardening as he processes the grim news. He connects the recent chaos to an abnormal spike in the tower's difficulty, a grim smile playing on his lips. Jed unleashes his full power, blasting the giant snake with a wave of golden energy. He grins with manic confidence, wondering aloud what kind of lunatic has become the new king. The scene shifts to a higher floor, where the reflection of a defeated serpent monster is seen on the polished ground. Elsewhere, a woman with short purple hair hums nonchalantly as she walks down a grand hallway. She places her hand against an ornate door, a flicker of impatience in her gesture. She asks if there's any word from the boss, only to be curtly dismissed from the other side. Inside, a 92nd floor inmate named Doris expresses her frustration, admitting she's also in the dark. Her companion fumes, questioning the warden's judgment and the new leader's suitability for the role. Two injured inmates look on in fear, revealing that their group was attacked and is being hunted. Their conversation is cut short by the sudden arrival of a cheerful pink-haired woman who greets them with a wide smile. The newcomer, Ramona, feigns disappointment, revealing she is the tower's new leader. She cheerfully asks the inmates if they're enjoying the fun new difficulty she personally designed. Doris angrily accuses her of designing the trials to be intentionally lethal. Ramona smiles sweetly, explaining her philosophy is simple: only the strong should survive. When accused of defying the previous leader's rules, she nonchalantly asks what the problem is. She points out that the former boss, a woman with long blue hair, isn't around to object. Ramona notes with a hint of anticipation that the previous leader is still nowhere to be found. With a look of twisted ecstasy, she admits she wishes the old boss would return just to eliminate her. Her unhinged desire leaves the other inmates completely appalled and speechless. Ramona's gaze hardens as she reminds them they're all just as twisted for being trapped in this prison. Ramona decides to pass the time by playing with the terrified inmates until the old boss returns. Back on the 29th floor, Ged Satine stands defiantly before the colossal serpent he just defeated. He holds his glowing weapon, internally noting that the fight felt strangely unsatisfying. His teammate watches in awe, struggling to comprehend what he just witnessed. He hesitantly asks Ged if he's even human, questioning his incredible power. The sheer force of Ged's presence is described as an overwhelming, pillar-like power. Helios stares intently, his mind racing as he tries to understand Ged's true identity. His vision sharpens, focusing on Ged with a newfound and unsettling clarity. His perception shifts, and for a moment he sees an ethereal glow surrounding Ged. The vision transforms, revealing the image of a mysterious woman with long, flowing blue hair. The vision solidifies, revealing a full, clear image of the ethereal woman with piercing pink eyes. The connection between them flickers and breaks with a flash of light and a sound of annoyance. As the vision fades, the woman's ghostly image overlaps perfectly with Ged, linking the two. Helios snaps back to reality, finding himself staring blankly as Ged calls out his name. Ged questions his dazed expression, asking why he looks like he's just seen a ghost. Helios looks away, sheepishly admitting that he's been seeing strange things lately. He tries to retreat to his own bed, but Ged stops him with a simple question. Ged forcefully grabs his shirt, declaring that for now, Helios will be sleeping with him. Despite his flustered protests, Helios is unceremoniously tucked into bed by a determined Ged. The next morning, Helios wakes up, surprised to find he slept better than he has in a long time. Helios awakens with a look of pure confusion, finding himself still in Ged's bed. He watches Ged sleep, noting with surprise how peaceful his companion looks. A chibi version of Helios panics, internally questioning his own bizarre behavior from the night before. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, he buries his face in his hand, only to notice something strange under the covers. He's stunned to see the person beside him now has long, flowing teal hair, just like the woman from his visions. He stares in disbelief, certain he saw a flash of teal hair before it vanished. Ged wakes up and stretches, his hair back to normal, leaving Helios to wonder what is real anymore. The hero is left questioning his own sanity, wondering if he's finally losing his grip on reality. After the trial, another group of inmates cheerfully congratulates Ged's team on their survival. Ged complains about barely making it out alive, admitting his intense dislike for snakes as Helios listens thoughtfully. Helios listens intently as another inmate describes the terrifying red venom from their trial. He recalls the snake he faced, remembering its venom was pitch black, not red. Ged leans in with a knowing smirk, sensing Helios has pieced something together. With a playful gesture, he signals for Helios to keep their little secret. Helios realizes with a shock that their trial was intentionally made more difficult, which Ged smugly confirms. Ged explains that black venom is a feature of much higher floors, deepening the mystery of their trial. He casually dismisses Helios's concern as mere practice, much to the hero's annoyance. Helios changes the subject, his expression serious as he questions Jed's use of a sword. Jed playfully deflects the question, but Helios presses for a straight answer, clearly flustered. He finally admits to using a sword on occasion, though he claims to dislike it. Jed teases that his master prefers fighting dirty, leaving a flustered Helios unable to tell if he's joking. Hyla and another teammate approach with concern, asking Helios why he's been talking to himself. Helios insists he was having a conversation, but his teammates confirm they only heard his voice. The hero has a horrified realization that he was talking to Ged, who wasn't actually there. Jed worries that Helios was hit by a mind attack, but the flustered hero waves off his team's concern. Jed playfully points out how much the team adores their captain, much to Helios's vocal annoyance. He continues to tease, misinterpreting the hero's flustered state as a sign of affection. Changing the subject, Ged announces he's taking a shower first and heads off. After leaving the group, Ged's playful demeanor fades as he sits alone, his expression turning serious. He internally acknowledges the tower's difficulty has become dangerously unpredictable, a problem he can no longer ignore. The instructor's true self grimly concludes that the tower's new difficulty will make their ascent nearly impossible. She recalls that this level of brutality is on par with the trials she faced during her own climb. She remembers the previous leader, a sadistic tyrant who delighted in the inmates' failures. The chaos was so intense that inmates were eliminated on every floor, driving many to madness. He recalls how the previous leader, Mama, had adjusted the difficulty to be more manageable. A sudden tap on his shoulder breaks him out of his thoughts. He decides he must contact the warden, confident the official won't let this chaos continue. The only problem is figuring out a way to actually get in touch with him. He knows it won't be easy, as the prison structure is designed to suppress most inmates' abilities. Furthermore, maintaining his disguise as Ged Satine requires him to constantly suppress his true power. He considers dropping his disguise, but knows it's not that simple. He glances toward the door, knowing Helios will be back from his shower any moment. As much as he hates to admit it, there's another reason he can't reveal his true self. He can't risk a certain high-ranking officer discovering his secret identity. Frustrated by his predicament, he sighs, cursing the man who keeps him in check. Deciding he has no other choice, he resolves to send a message using a special ring. A brilliant light flashes as his appearance begins to dramatically transform. His short brown hair lengthens into flowing teal locks, revealing his true female form. She reflects that it's been a long time since she's been in her own body. Shaking off the nostalgia, she focuses her energy, preparing to contact the warden. She summons a glowing magical messenger, commanding it to find the warden. The tiny familiar zips away, carrying her urgent message through the prison. Her magical signal streaks through the air, a beacon of light in the dark corridor. She knows she must be careful, as using her full power risks exposing her true identity. With the message sent, she waits anxiously for a reply, hoping her gamble pays off. But a sudden sound from the doorway makes her realize she's made a critical mistake. Helios stands there, having returned from his shower at the worst possible moment. His eyes narrow, trying to process the sight of the mysterious woman sitting where Ged should be. He finally confronts the figure from his visions, demanding to know who she is. Internally, she curses her terrible luck, realizing her secret is finally out. She calmly reveals her identity, confirming she is his master. She internally admits she anticipated his arrival, but is frustrated by the timing of her reveal. Helios is left completely speechless, struggling to comprehend the impossible revelation. Overwhelmed by confusion, he rubs his eyes, unable to accept what he's seeing. In complete denial, he asks the woman where his real master, Ged, has gone. She smiles, playfully suggesting that knocking him unconscious might be the easiest way to handle his confusion. Her bizarre suggestion only deepens his confusion, leaving him to question the reality of the situation. She thoughtfully touches her chin, considering her next move as she assesses his reaction. His perception shifts again, and he senses the unique and beautiful quality of her true energy. She covers her mouth in surprise, caught off guard by his sudden and perceptive observation. He reaches out a trembling hand, struggling to accept what he's seeing. He looks down at his master, wondering aloud if this entire bizarre encounter is just a dream. A confident smile plays on her lips as she enjoys his utter bewilderment. She playfully asks if her true form happens to be his type, turning his own words against him. A chibi Helios erupts in a flustered blush, completely short-circuiting from her teasing question. He stammers a denial, desperately trying to change the subject by mentioning another inmate's return. In a moment of panic, he blurts out that his master is his type, earning a sharp reaction. A swift strike sends him stumbling to the ground, clearly overwhelmed by her response. He collapses against her, the shock of the revelation finally catching up to him. She holds his unconscious form, sheepishly admitting she didn't mean to voice her last thought. She gently lays the unconscious Helios down on the bed after the shocking revelation. Standing over him, she complains about how heavy he is, breaking the tension of the moment. She reflects on his shocking confession, admitting her own common sense is also questionable. Even in his sleep, Helios seems to question the absurdity of her reaction to his words. Deciding to erase the memory, she prepares to use her magic to make him forget the entire encounter. She places a glowing hand on his forehead, commanding him to forget what he saw. Her spell is designed to convince him that the entire reveal was nothing more than a dream. Her magical messenger returns, and she silently congratulates it on completing its mission. With her task complete, she prepares to revert to her male disguise. Transforming back into Ged, he eagerly awaits the warden's response to his urgent message. The warden's voice rings out, chiding Ged for managing to stir up so much trouble. He continues his report, revealing that the ruler of the 100th floor has been replaced. But there's a complication. The new leader wasn't chosen through normal means, suggesting outside interference. Ged processes this information, recalling the only two ways to become the tower's ultimate ruler. The first method is to clear the 100th floor while the top position is vacant, which happened in his absence. The second, more brutal method is to eliminate the current boss and seize their title. The warden reveals that Ged's successor, Clark, wasn't eliminated but is now barely clinging to life. Ged finds this unprecedented, realizing the tower has already accepted the new leader by altering its difficulty. He learns the higher-ups are now in damage control, preparing to negotiate with this new unknown ruler. For now, the warden instructs him to lay low and focus on his current mission. Ged sits up in bed, internally reflecting on the warden's words about the meaning of failure. His true self begins to calmly summarize the chaotic situation they now face. He mentally lists the key facts. The tower has a new, unapproved leader, and the warden is not happy about it. He considers a fourth crucial point that was deliberately withheld from him. He realizes the warden has no intention of revealing the new leader's identity. Lying back down, he deduces that this secrecy leaves only two possible explanations. Either the new boss is a dangerous lunatic, or knowing their identity would jeopardize his mission. The next morning begins with a sudden, panicked scream echoing through the halls. Helios is jolted awake by the commotion, a look of tired confusion on his face. He sits up to find one of his teammates also startled, questioning the early morning disturbance. Ged sits up, asking a flustered Helios if he had a bad dream. The hero is overcome with embarrassment, his face flushing bright red. He buries his face in his hands as a concerned Ged asks if he's feeling unwell. Ged presses for an answer, wondering why Helios looks so flustered if he's not sick. Helios stammers that he said something strange in his dream, piquing Ged's curiosity. A memory of his dream flashes in his mind, where he confessed that his master was his type. He frantically denies the memory, while Ged nonchalantly comments on how vivid his dream must have been. Ged watches his flustered companion with a calm, slightly amused expression. Helios clutches his head in mortification, questioning his own sanity after the bizarre dream. He finally composes himself, turning away from Ged to hide his lingering embarrassment. Helios looks at his hands, trying to make sense of the strange dream he just had. The hero has a horrifying realization, wondering if his dream means he's attracted to men. Ged dismisses his companion's crisis and tells him to get ready for training. As Helios spirals into an identity crisis, Ged shows zero sympathy for his predicament. Later, the team gathers in the cafeteria for a meal before their next trial. Ged sits lost in thought, his expression unreadable as he stares into the distance. He turns his attention to Helios, questioning why the hero is staring at him so intently. Ged points out Helios's recent odd behavior, causing the hero to blush furiously. He playfully teases Helios about being shy around him, leaving the hero completely flustered. When pressed about why he can't make eye contact, Helios weakly claims he was just lost in thought. Ged presses Helios for an answer, questioning what's on his mind. Helios recalls Ged's overwhelming power against the serpent, feeling inadequate in comparison. He dismisses his thoughts, looking away with a dejected expression. Ged watches him with a knowing look. a playful star floating above his head. With an elegant gesture, Ged playfully asks why he looks so down. Helios flushes bright red, completely flustered by the question and the attention. Ged leans in to comfort him, but Helios weakly pushes him away, overwhelmed by the close contact. The instructor's true self reflects on Helios's growth, feeling a sense of pride in her student. The narrative explains that upon reaching the 30th floor, Helios is already considered a high-ranking inmate with few equals. A chibi version of his master beams with pride, admitting she's enjoying the process of training him. She reflects that her job would be simpler if Helios were just an arrogant man obsessed with his own power. Holding his chin, she admits to herself that she likes him precisely because he is so unique in this prison. A nearby teammate breaks the moment, questioning how long Ged plans to hold him like that. Ged smirks, internally noting that he prefers this flustered expression to Helios's usual sulking. A chibi version of Helios flails to get away while a chibi Ged playfully refuses to let him go. Later, Helios sits anxiously, his hands clasped as he continues to wrestle with his thoughts. Ged tries to reassure him, promising that despite his worries, he won't be eliminated. Helios looks up with a flicker of hope, asking if this means his master will protect him. With a sly grin, Ged bluntly states that he has no intention of protecting him at all. Frustrated by the response, Helios starts to stand up, but Ged isn't finished with his lesson yet. Ged places a hand on Helios's head, promising to help him survive the trials. He encourages Helios to keep climbing, pushing him to reach the very top of the tower. The hero erupts in a massive blush, completely flustered by the sudden gentle contact. A chibi Ged playfully questions his disciple's constant blushing, leaving Helios even more embarrassed. Ged calmly admits he has a hard time reading people's emotions, explaining he's not a social person. Helios is left speechless by this surprisingly vulnerable confession. A chibi Ged cheekily declares that as his student, Helios will just have to learn to understand him, one way or another. Exhausted, Helios finally admits that he simply looks up to his teacher. He reasons that someone as powerful as Ged must have plenty of admirers. The instructor's true self internally scoffs, doubting anyone in this prison is capable of pure admiration without an ulterior motive. Ged smugly claims to be very popular, but Helios loudly refutes the absurd idea. The hero quickly becomes flustered, trying to backtrack as Ged watches him with curiosity. He clenches his fist, clarifying that his only goal is to become as strong as his teacher. Ged listens with a thoughtful expression, preparing to add another comment to the conversation. Helios suddenly blurts out that he isn't prejudiced, his face flushing with embarrassment. A chibi Ged calmly accepts his statement, which only makes a chibi Helios tremble with frustration. As other inmates watch, Helios loudly insists he isn't prejudiced, but Ged calmly dismisses his outburst. Overcome with mortification, Helios buries his face in his hands, insisting his master doesn't understand. Ged gives a cheerful thumbs up, completely misinterpreting the situation and promising to make him strong. The hero internally screams in frustration, realizing his master has twisted his words entirely. The scene shifts to the 30th floor, revealing an ominous Gothic castle at dusk. The new trial begins inside the unsettling structure, with the team moving cautiously through its halls. A sudden scream echoes as a different team of inmates flees down a corridor in terror. One woman carries a panicked teammate on her back, scolding him for his fear. Their desperate escape is cut short as they find themselves trapped at a dead end. Despite her brave front, the woman begins to tremble and cry, overwhelmed by her own fear. She screams internally, revealing a traumatic past connected to this very location. Nearby, Helios observes the scene, noting the woman's complete and utter panic. He looks around, his expression hardening as he realizes his own teacher is nowhere to be found. A flashback to 20 minutes earlier reveals the trial's taunting announcement, presented as a twisted game of darts. The team finds a large dartboard and a single pin, with one member dismissing it as harmless. Without warning, the dart suddenly shoots through the air with incredible speed. It strikes a teammate named Seth directly in the chest, causing a moment of sheer panic. His teammates rush to his side, but he insists he's fine as the dart vanishes without a trace. As they question his safety, their attention is drawn back to the ominous dartboard on the wall. The board's center splits open, revealing a monstrous mouth that taunts them about their fear. A disembodied voice gleefully invites the terrified inmates to a deadly game of hide-and-seek. The announcement reveals their opponent is a ghost, a murderer from a novel, who then vanishes down the hall. The team finds themselves suddenly transported inside the mansion, completely disoriented by the new trial. Jed breaks the confusion, pointing directly at one of the other inmates with a serious expression. Jed directly confronts the panicked woman, asking what she's so afraid of. She nervously lists her greatest fears, which include ghosts and murderers from horror novels. As she speaks, a menacing barefoot figure emerges from the shadows. The figure is revealed to be a menacing man with a bag over his head, wielding an axe. A terrified scream rips through the air, echoing from the ominous mansion. The team finds themselves face to face with the axe-wielding murderer from the trial's announcement. His teammates stare in disbelief, questioning the identity of the creepy, masked figure. They recall how Helios's spear passed right through the entity, leading them to believe it's a ghost. Unfazed, Ged calmly explains their only path to survival is reaching a designated safe room. The panicked woman collapses in terror, revealing she recognizes the ghostly murderer. The terrified woman realizes the killer is a perfect replica from a horror novel she once read. Helios and his teammate are baffled, questioning how a fictional book could be the source of their trial. He turns to his master, sensing Ged already knows something about this place and demanding to know why. A chibi Ged playfully praises his disciple's sharp deduction, much to Helios's flustered annoyance. The instructor's true self reveals the floor's secret. It randomly manifests an inmate's greatest fear. She reflects that most high-level inmates are already mentally fragile from the constant life-or-death struggles. Now, these battle-worn prisoners are forced to confront their deepest, most personal terrors. She grimly concludes that it's a cruelly effective way to shatter someone's psyche completely. Her thoughts shift back to the killer, noting that something about this entity feels strangely different. Back in his disguise, Ged watches the scene unfold, his expression laced with suspicion. Jed stretches, casually announcing this trial might be too much for the team to handle. With a sly grin, he tells them to figure out the solution while he goes to scout ahead. Elsewhere, another team hides as their leader, Hyla, signals for complete silence. He smiles with relief, realizing the killer has passed them by, buying them a little more time. His teammate panics, knowing they can't just hide forever before the axe-wielding murderer returns. Her mind flashes back to the monstrous dartboard that challenged them to a deadly game of hide-and-seek. Hyla grimly jokes that they've all been cast as the main characters in Seth's personal horror story. As Seth collapses in terror, another teammate insists they must figure out the plot of this novel to survive. The red-haired woman steals her resolve, deciding she has no choice but to take action. Seth breaks down completely, laughing hysterically as he insists he isn't scared in the slightest. Her teammates watch in exasperation as the red-haired woman insists she's just suppressing her fear. Suddenly, another teammate has a breakthrough, realizing they can seal the killer in the basement. She celebrates her discovery, while Hyla dryly notes that she has the look of someone who has finally snapped. Taking command, Hyla orders the team to hold their positions and prepare to move to the basement. They arrive at the imposing basement door, ready to confront whatever lies within. One of the inmates pushes the door, finding it strangely unlocked and open. Hyla peers into the darkness, a subtle, knowing smirk on his face. Inside the room, a pair of bare-marked feet stand ominously on the floor. The masked killer is already there, clutching his chest as he realizes he's found his targets. The quick-thinking inmate points to an altar, explaining they can seal the entity by grabbing a candle holder and chanting a spell. Hyla orders everyone to rush the altar, confident that if even one of them makes it, they'll succeed. Carrying a panicked Seth, Helios lunges forward, determined to reach the objective. His spear finds its mark, striking the killer's arm and confirming the entity is very much real. The killer retaliates with surprising speed, sending Helios flying back with a brutal counterattack. The killer lands before the terrified woman, who is shocked that two of her teammates made it this far. Overwhelmed with despair, she collapses, realizing her own fear has held her back. Just in time, Helios intercepts the killer's attack, his spear glowing as it holds back the powerful blow. With a look of grim determination, he screams for Seth to run while he holds the line. The hero stands his ground, locked in a tense standoff with the relentless murderer. A look of confusion crosses Helios's face as he realizes something is fundamentally wrong with this opponent. The masked killer brings his weapon down with terrifying force, his glowing eyes fixed on his target. Helios struggles to parry the blow, his own weapon groaning under the immense pressure. He realizes with dread that his spear is cracking and will soon shatter, leaving him defenseless. Knowing his current weapon is useless, Helios decides he needs something far more powerful. In a flash of inspiration, he summons a new ornate blade infused with crackling blue energy. Wielding the ethereal sword, Helios prepares to unleash an attack strong enough to end the fight. With a look of intense focus, he channels all his power into the decisive strike. He unleashes a powerful slash, striking the killer with a wave of brilliant blue energy. At the same moment, Seth triumphantly raises the candle holder from the altar, successfully sealing the entity. Helios smiles in relief as the ominous atmosphere fades, and the trial's distorted space returns to normal. Helios glances back, a knowing look in his eyes as he pieces together the truth. The defeated killer's mask is reached for as a voice declares the ordeal is finally over. The mask is removed to reveal a smug Ged, who playfully questions Helios's sudden formality. Helios confronts his master, who cheekily admits he was just playing the part of the final boss. He internally reflects that both recent trials were made impossibly difficult simply because of his presence. Ged casually dismisses the danger as training, then curiously asks how Helios saw through his disguise. Helios quietly admits that he can simply tell when it's his master, no matter the form. In his mind's eye, he sees his master's true ethereal form standing confidently behind Ged. He reaffirms his conviction, knowing he can always recognize his teacher's unique presence. Looking directly at Ged, Helios states with certainty that he knew it was him the entire time. Ged smirks, congratulating Helios on clearing the trial and praising his sharp intuition. He commends Helios for leading his comrades well, but the hero simply addresses his master. When questioned, Helios explains that he knew because it was his master, leaving Ged momentarily speechless. Helios blushes, internally admitting he'd rather die than confess his master is special to him. He reaffirms his internal vow, not yet ready to voice such a deeply personal admission. The scene shifts to the waiting room where other inmates are loudly protesting the brutal trials. Ged calmly observes the chaos, noting that the floors up to the 39th are all designed to exploit fear. His attention is drawn to a commotion where one inmate is being aggressively recruited by another. The terrified inmate begs for mercy, as Ged internally wonders if it's already scouting season for stronger teams. Helios watches the aggressive recruitment with confusion, questioning what is happening. The narrative explains that the prison is divided into factions called families, who engage in aggressive scouting. The guards conveniently ignore these internal conflicts, leaving the inmates to fend for themselves. From certain floors onward, these families actively recruit promising newcomers to strengthen their ranks. The instructor's true self laments that while retaliation is forbidden, the prison has already fallen into chaos in her absence. She realizes that Helios, with his growing power, has become a prime target for every family's recruitment efforts. Just then, a smirking inmate with a mohawk approaches, recognizing a familiar face in the crowd. He gets uncomfortably close to Ged, pointing him out as the former guard who is now a prisoner. Before he can finish his sentence, a swift punch sends him reeling backward. Ged stands over the fallen man, coldly reminding him that he is still technically a guard and demands he back off. The punkish inmate clutches his face, tearfully admitting he momentarily forgot who he was dealing with. The punkish inmate redirects his attention, declaring that Helios is the real reason they're here. He formally requests a word with the hero, while Ged casually dismisses the beaten man on the floor. The recruiter invades Helios's personal space, fawning over his reputation as a super rookie who has never been eliminated. He presents a contract shrouded in dark energy, his questions turning morbid as he asks about past injuries. The ominous energy solidifies, revealing his name is Chica and he represents the powerful Tower Committee. The hero is suddenly ensnared by the dark energy, finding himself completely unable to move. The recruiter makes his offer, promising Helios a place in a prestigious family if he just signs the contract. Ged watches with a sigh of frustration, realizing the most troublesome faction in the prison has just arrived. The instructor's true self agonizes over the situation, realizing that either accepting or refusing the offer will cause serious problems. Just as the recruiter presses his advantage, Ged steps forward, raising a hand to halt the proceedings. Ged casually reminds the recruiter that coercion is a reportable offense, but the man calls it wholesome persuasion. Unimpressed, Ged questions the recruiter's nonsensical excuse with a deadpan expression. Helios firmly declines the offer, stating he has no intention of joining any family at the moment. With a simple nod, Ged accepts the decision, effectively shutting down the recruiter's attempt. The recruiter nervously backpedals, claiming the entire aggressive recruitment was just a misunderstanding. As the recruiters retreat, they tell Helios to think over their offer, leaving him and Ged alone. Jed turns to his student, questioning why he even allowed the recruiters to approach him. Helios asks if his master intends to just leave him to fend off these aggressive factions by himself. Jed confirms he will, but offers to step in if Helios gets scared by any more weirdos. With sudden intensity, Helios tells his master not to interfere, his resolve hardening. Blushing furiously, Helios tells his master to be greedy in raising him. He grabs Ged's hand, insisting his master dominate and train him personally, not hand him off to others. Jed stares back, taken aback by his student's sudden and passionate plea. Tightening his grip, Helios pledges to obey any command his master gives. He explains this devotion stems from his master protecting him without expecting anything in return. The hero admits this is a new experience for him, one he desperately wants to cherish. Jed notes the change in his student's eyes as Helios begs him not to let him go. The instructor's true self internally admits she sometimes regrets her inability to understand emotions. A memory of Mama surfaces, identifying the hero's feeling as affection, something he's long forgotten. She closes her eyes with a sense of anticipation, realizing Helios has yet to understand the true depth of his own feelings. She foresees a future where Helios reaches the top and finally learns the devastating truth. She grimly predicts that by then she'll be gone, and he will be left to regret his passionate words. Meanwhile, another teammate complains loudly, now completely sick of the aggressive scouting attempts. Jed coolly suggests they find a proper team, noting that Helios seems to attract all the weirdos. The teammate angrily retorts, insisting they have no desire to go anywhere else as long as Ged is with them. Unmoved, Ged dismisses them, stating he can't train them properly and they should seek out others with similar skills. The teammate is left speechless and hurt by the sudden, cold rejection. Desperate, he asks for a recommendation, as another high-ranking inmate, Hyla, watches from a distance. Jed glances back at his dejected teammates, his expression unreadable. He then turns his attention to Hyla, pointedly asking if he has a recommendation for him as well. A flustered Hyla insists he's already said no, while a chibi Ged calmly acknowledges his refusal. Jed plugs his ears, recalling that the recruiter mentioned something important earlier. Hyla explains that the prison is about to become chaotic due to major changes among the guards. He elaborates that a significant figure is scheduled to return, sparking a moment of realization. The instructor's true self internally realizes that the returning figure is the dreaded Chief Warden. An ominous image of a man in a formal uniform confirms the Chief Warden's imminent return. She internally curses, recognizing the man who keeps her in check is finally coming back. Jed leans back, realizing the warden's absence is the reason for the recent lack of oversight. He considers laying low for a while, knowing the warden's return will complicate his mission. Meanwhile, Helios deals with more aggressive recruiters, impressively handling 3 mid-level inmates at once. Jed calmly watches as Helios stands over the defeated recruiters, asking if he has any feedback. Helios suggests a more brutal approach for future fights, and Ged nonchalantly agrees. A female teammate approaches Ged, questioning if he was expecting some kind of praise for his student's victory. Jed dismisses the idea, stating that the fight was too insignificant to warrant any praise. He elaborates that it was a fight Helios was always destined to win easily. When asked how he'd handle a stronger foe, Ged confidently states he would have dealt with them beforehand. The woman calls him an enigma, completely baffled by his detached and confident attitude. In a chibi moment, she complains that his logic is becoming increasingly bizarre and contradictory. She leans in close, whispering a suggestion to Ged for a bit of fun. The woman offers him a new tactic to try the next time a similar situation arises. The scene shifts to the 33rd floor, revealing a majestic palace straight out of a fairy tale. A storybook narrative begins, describing a princess with skin as white as snow. The tale continues, emphasizing the king's blessing of a daughter named Snow White. But instead of a princess, Ged appears, now cast as the dashing Prince Mint in this twisted fairy tale. He recalls the moment the trial's dart chose him, making his mind the source of this new challenge. His teammates were left stunned as the world around them warped into this strange new reality. Jed internally complains about being forced into the role of a prince, of all things. His true self reveals the floor's weakness. It can't yet access her deepest fears. Instead, it manifested something she merely dislikes, recalling her childhood aversion to fairy tales. Deciding to play along, Prince Mint points confidently toward the castle, ready to begin the trial. He finds a teammate cast as a crying gatekeeper, who begs the prince for help. With a single touch, Ged frees her from her paralysis, much to her surprise. The now cheerful knight explains that another teammate, Hyla, knows where everyone is. She reveals Hyla sent a telepathic message, confirming the others are already inside the castle. Ged calmly considers Hyla's potential role, musing that she would make a fitting queen. Instead, Hyla has been transformed into the magic mirror, her face trapped in the glass with a look of pure humiliation. While Ged wonders if he's allowed to laugh, the knight teammate desperately pleads for her release. Another teammate finds the fairy tale setting surprisingly pleasant, questioning why Ged is so bothered by it. Ged clarifies that he doesn't fear it, he just dislikes it, concluding the trial must be malfunctioning. Just then, another teammate appears, cast as Brett the Hunter, cheerfully announcing he missed them. Another teammate appears as a flustered dwarf, clearly unamused by his new role in the fairy tale. The others recount their experiences, with the knight still flustered by the queen's beauty and the hunter acting on instinct. Prince Mint suddenly realizes someone is missing, looking around for his wayward disciple. The dwarf teammate nervously begins to explain what happened to Helios. He reveals Helios was separated by the story's progression, trapped beyond a picturesque stream. Gade explains they were blocked from following by an impassable, magically locked barrier. Unfazed, Ged declares he'll retrieve Helios himself, ordering the others to stay put. The dwarf panics, trying to stop the prince from rushing off unprepared. As Ged walks away, the dwarf desperately warns him not to be shocked by what he finds. The prince stops dead in his tracks, his expression shifting to one of genuine surprise. The prince arrives at a picturesque hill crowned by a single, majestic tree. He discovers a figure lying on a bed of flowers, cast in the role of the story's princess. Ged cautiously approaches, questioning the bizarre sight before him. His expression shifts to one of pure, unadulterated shock. He finds Helios cast as Snow White, looking mortified as his master playfully mocks his new attire. The flustered princess questions why the prince came alone, wondering about their teammates. Ged takes a seat, thoroughly enjoying his student's humiliation while Helios pleads for mercy. The prince insists on admiring the spectacle, much to the hero's flustered and threatening dismay. After being urged to act, Ged raises a glowing hand, casually agreeing to proceed with the trial. He attempts to free Helios from his role, but is baffled when his magic fails to work on his disciple. Ged considers his next move, realizing he may have to follow the fairy tale's plot to break the spell. The prince confidently announces he's found the solution, much to the impatient princess's relief. He calmly explains that according to the story, they need to kiss, leaving Helios completely stunned. Ged sits beside him, casually wondering if it's awkward, while Helios frantically tries to suggest another way. Panicked, Helios grabs his master's leg, insisting that if it has to happen, Ged must be the one to do it. The prince leans in, teasingly reminding Helios how much he used to dislike this, but the hero insists things have changed. With a flustered but determined look, Helios declares that he isn't prejudiced about this at all. Ged simply accepts his student's declaration, promising to make it quick and not awkward. Helios closes his eyes in anticipation, urging his master to just get it over with. In a chibi moment, Ged playfully teases his flustered student who just wants the ordeal to end. Ged smirks, playfully claiming this will be his first kiss as well. He leans in closer, gently cupping the flustered princess's face. The prince finally kisses the princess, breaking the fairy tale's powerful spell. He internally admits this is his first time too, telling Helios to just deal with it.